Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the December 1st, 2022 Parks and Recreation Commission regular video meeting. I am Jody McCarthy, the Parks and Recreation Commission Chair. In accordance with Proclamation 20-28.10 and the Governor's extended Safe Start Order, tonight's Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The Zoom video of this meeting is being recorded and will broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this evening. City staff and consultant guests are participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members are listening to the meeting by telephone or via the internet. Additionally, the city has opened up the community center to provide public space for viewing and participating in the meeting. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones. Will the city staff please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair. Chair McCarthy.
Here.
Vice Chair Struck. Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Westberg.
Here.
Commissioner Markson.
Here.
Commissioner Burstein.
Present.
Commissioner Hay.
Here.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Individuals wishing to speak live during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone, via Zoom, or in person at Mercer Island Community and Event Center. Provided, however, they registered their desire to speak with the city admin staff by 4 p.m. today. Our city admin staff will call on you by name or telephone number when it is your time to speak. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak to the Parks and Recreation Commission. All remarks will be addressed to the commission as a whole and not to individual commission or staff members. If any person makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the commission, I will request that the person leave the meeting. When it is your turn to address the commission, be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I will provide you with a 30-second and 15-second warning when your time is about to expire. City staff, is there anyone who has signed up for appearances that wishes to address the commission?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. We have 6 appearances. First, we have Ryan Cudney. I'm going to move you over now, Ryan.
Good evening. This is Ryan. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. I feel privileged to address this group. I'm a new resident of Mercer Island. I am an assistant coach just this fall season, actually. Just joined the Mercer Island mountain biking team. My son got into it and I thought it was a great opportunity. I was driving him to all these practices to tag along and ride with the team. So I became an assistant coach. And I recently joined the Mercer Island Mountain Bike Association. I am simply here to thank the chair and this commission and to thank the city staff who've, I think, done a fabulous job on this initial design, really a good start. I am by no means an expert on design, so I'm going to leave that to more educated and thoughtful people on this call, but I think it's a really good start. I also want to thank the Mercer Island Parks and Recreation Commission for the work that's been done here. I moved here about a year ago, July of 2021, in the midst of the pandemic. I moved here from Chicago, where 3 of my kids, who are now 2 at Northwood and 1 at Mercer Island Middle School. And we moved here and immediately had some neighbors walk across the street. I was told to expect the Seattle freeze. I got none of that. I had wonderful neighbors up on 33rd. If you know where 33rd place is, you could hit a golf ball and you could probably land it in what was called the Snake Island mountain bike area. And these neighbors came across and knocked on our door and they said, hey, you look the same age as us. And, would your kids be, willing to come over and play with us? We have this really cool mountain bike thing, right? That was day one. The moving truck was still in the driveway and my kids ran around and I thought they're gone forever. I didn't realize it was 30 seconds away. And they came back and they said, this is the coolest thing we've ever seen. And they spent every single day there for 6 weeks until it closed. And when it closed, I was so surprised because all I had heard was good things. I mean, I'd only been here for 6 weeks. And I learned a little bit more about the reasons why and who was against it and who was for it. And it was boisterous. And I understand. I spent 12 years in political campaigns in Illinois. I know how, politics can get tough. But I knew it was a lot of fun too. And so what I want to just say is thank you to all of those on this call who have worked really hard over the last year to come up with an alternative solution. I think that's a good sign. I have now had the opportunity to spend time around the people who really know mountain biking on this island and the kids that have enjoyed it for far longer than mine have. And they're a good group of people. And I think with the partnership of the Mercer Island Mountain Bike Association
30 seconds.
and with the kids on the team, along with all of the adults that are here, I think we have a really good experience in the new location. So I'm nothing but positive feelings for what's ahead. And
15
again,
seconds.
thank the chair McCarthy and all those for the opportunity to say hello first. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Katie Bunker, and I'll be moving over now.
Okay, can you hear and see me okay?
We can.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much for letting me join this evening. I'm a resident also of the island, and I have 2 sons who joined the mountain biking team a couple of years ago, age 14 and age 12. And I also just recently, become a member of the Mountain Biking Advocate Association as well. I really want to start off in a similar vein to Ryan and say thank you for all the work done. I really appreciated the meeting a couple of weeks ago where we got the opportunity to take a look at the new site. I think really happy about having this amenity for the kids on the island, particularly when they get to this tween age. Having things for them to do that are healthy and outdoors is so important, and I'm so delighted about the new site. The request I have for the design is that we continue to engage the coaches, as you already are doing, and asking them for their opinions on the jumps, because the kids that are going to use the amenity are the kids that they know and they're coaching. So really ask us to continue to listen and get that input like you are doing. I'm really delighted that it's a 2-way process, and thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to say is once this thing gets up and running, there are a lot of people here who want to make this successful. So calling on, the team and the mountain biking advocates to help make this a successful, endeavor and a successful thing for the kids to do is something that we don't want to just go, hey, and get this thing set up and then walk away. We're here because we are invested in the community. I care about Mercer Island being and staying a great place to live. So we want to be part of making this a successful endeavor. So that was it. Just thank you. And that we're here and we want to be part of making this successful as we go forward. This is not a small undertaking, we get that. So we really appreciate the endeavor and want to make sure we're around to make it successful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next up we have Karen Grove, and I'm moving you over now, Karen.
Okay, I just joined as a panelist. I think you guys can hear me now.
We can.
Great, thank you. So good evening. Thank you for volunteering for our Mercer Island community, and we appreciate all that you do. My name is Karen Grove, and I live at 84th at 57th, which is right on the edge of the park quadrant that includes Dean's Children's Park. And it has numerous trails connecting ICW to the west side of the island. It's how we get to a King County Metro bus stop. And I walk there daily with my dog. My 2 girls use the trails to get to playground, soccer practice, and the bus. And this is also a very, very popular walking path for our island seniors. This is also the park quadrant that a very small part of it is being now recommended for the 1/4 acre bike skills area. And I'm here to talk with you about not the 1/4 acre park itself, which I think your group is doing a good job of studying and proposing, but how to ensure that that quarter acre integrates safely with the surrounding park quadrant. And first, I just want to say there was very little notice provided to us. The Luther Burbank North End plan was studied for months and months. A report went out that had maybe 12 options. And all of a sudden, Beans was selected with essentially just a few weeks of notice when many of us were not even aware of what was happening. But I've now spoken at length with the consultants at the November 17th design meeting, and I learned that the city has not yet required the consultants to provide specifics regarding access points, no requirement that they specify yet fencing, and even no discussion whatsoever of the assessment of how the bikers may or may not extend that bike skills area informally to the whole quadrant. And this is a very large safety risk to the bikers themselves, some of whom are still learning how to bike, as well as seniors, families walking with pets on leashes, and kids, little kids who are not on bikes, but are using those trails to go from home to school or the ballpark or the playground. And the city has not started looking at this risk. And I was actually minimized by a council member who showed up there who said there wouldn't be a risk. And I think that's a liability and a poor judgment on the part of that individual. My request, and I'm speaking for many, many families in the neighborhood, is that the Parks Commission slow down the process to allow for appropriate planning and input. We're not concerned about the quarter acre BSA, but it's the impact on the rest of the park.
30 seconds.
Specifically, we ask you to direct the consultants before you move on to the next step in this decision to deliver the following: design options for access to the park,
15 seconds.
design options for fencing, an analysis of whether bikers will ride their bikes through the rest of the park, and options to mitigate the impact on safety, such as invest in dedicated bike paths versus pedestrian-only paths, or widen the
Your
paths to
3
create
minutes
bike
is up.
lanes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Brian Shires. Brian, I'm moving you over to panelist now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Commission. Brian Shires, a resident of Mercer Island, coach of our Mercer Island mountain bike team, and also the president of our Mercer Island Mountain Biking Advocates Organization. We really appreciate having the great facilities we do have on Mercer Island. We practice and ride bikes and all of the parks on the island. Really appreciate what we have, and we really appreciate these investments we're making. The bike skills area in Upper Luther Burbank Park was closed over a year ago, actually on October 7th. Since that time, obviously, we've seen the situation evolve from a temporary closure to a new site selection process. So kids have been out of the park well over a year. Of course, I'm disappointed by this extended period, but I'm hopeful we can find a solution to meet the needs of our island teens. First, a big thank you to the city operations staff for getting the 30% design in place, providing the community survey, and hosting the site review meeting, getting really good engagement. It's been great to see the commitment to finding a solution. Just this afternoon, we're able to see that initial design, the 30% design. My first reaction to that was a good start. However, I think there's opportunities for improvement, and we'll refine that. Some of my top immediate feedbacks that I'd love to see in the design as we influence this. It seemed to be heavily used wooden features. I'd really like to see more wooden features replaced by dirt features that fit into the natural surrounding and better environment. Also, the design doesn't seem to leverage the natural grade and slope of the dip that's on the west side of the proposed area. It's a natural feature opportunity that would be a missed opportunity. And then also the current 30% design lacks the more challenging features that the former bike skills area in Upper Luther Burbank Park contained, and might miss meeting the desires of some park users. I look forward to future engagements to refine the design. I know it's just a start with 30%. We just have a great starting point. I really hope we can stay engaged and help assist to find a workable solution for everyone. And thanks to the Mercer Island Parks and Recreation Commission for your continued efforts. to find a solution to reopen this area. I know there's been a lot of work going through a multitude, I think over 20 different areas were
30
considered
seconds.
lots of site visits. The Mercer Island bike community is ready to volunteer to bring this to life. Please contact me with any questions and additional input for the BSA. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have Jay Greer, and I am transferring him over, promoting to panelists now.
Thank you.
Chair, it looks like we have a hand raised.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the protocol is with that. Did you have a comment, Councilmember Reynolds?
That was an accidental hand raise, sorry.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jay.
Okay, if you can hear me, my name is Jay Greer. I'm a resident of Mercer Island. I'm here in strong support of the proposed bike skills area at Teens Children's Park. I also, as with others, want to thank the city staff, the Parks Commission, and City Council for their work in moving this project forward. My wife and I have lived on Mercer Island for over 10 years. We have 3 kids. 2 of our kids love mountain bike riding, and our youngest son, Sam, now 12 years old, is on the Mercer Island mountain bike team. I'm an assistant coach for the team. I'm also a board member with the Mercer Island Mountain Bike Advocates, the newly formed nonprofit that supports Mercer Island's youth and mountain biking on the island. I'd actually like to pause and take a moment to describe both the team and the mountain bike advocates, how they're connected and how they might help with this project, because I think there's some confusion about it sometimes. So the Mercer Island mountain bike team was started roughly 8 years ago. Our riders are middle school and high school age boys and girls. We're co-ed. We're part of the Washington Student Cycling League, and we compete in cross-country mountain bike races all over the state. Today, we have about 30 riders on the team. We're a no-cut team with rider skill levels ranging from complete beginners to very advanced. We have a short fall season that ends in October and an extended spring season. That's our main season. It runs February through June. We're coached exclusively by parent volunteers. As mentioned, Brian Shires is the team's head coach, and I'm an assistant coach, and there are a bunch of others of us too. So that's the team. The Mercer Island Mountain Bike Advocates is newly formed nonprofit. It believes in empowering youth through cycling. Our primary mission is to promote mountain biking access and stewardship on Mercer Island. The president of this organization is also Brian Shires, so all roads lead to Brian. And its board consists of parents from the mountain bike team, although its mission is broader than the team alone. We represent the broader mountain bike community of Mercer Island, particularly as it relates to city initiatives that impact the community. So as I mentioned, the parents who lead the bike team are also the leaders of the bike advocates group. And some of the riders on the team are the same kids who helped build the Upper Luther Burbank skills area in the first place. So I wanted you guys to see the connections between those 2 groups and the fact that some of those kids link back to the former Snake Hill. So I just wanted everyone to know about those connections. And I also wanted to share how we might be leveraged for this project. So specifically, we can help with the design of the new skills area. I know we've been involved a little bit to this point, but I think there's a lot more we could help out. We could actually help build it. Some of us, the kids, helped build the last one, so we certainly could help with that. We'd like to provide stewardship, some level of stewardship once it's built, and we could potentially even raise money to try to help fund aspects of it if necessary. I know the initial design was just completed today. It is a good first step. It was really nice to see, and I really appreciate the
30
effort.
seconds.
Yep, I do feel some additional refinements would improve it. My suggestion is we have a small roundtable meeting, either in person or on Zoom, that includes some of the coaches from the bike team, a few representative youth riders that we can provide, or we can connect with, the course designer, city staff, and any other interested
15
parties.
seconds.
Some of our coaches have expertise in designing trails and building them, and I think their feedback would be really good. Please let me or Brian know if we can help organizing a meeting like this. And once again, thanks for this group's effort and everybody else involved in the project.
Thank you.
Okay, and our 6th appearance is Nancy Hyde Morris. I apologize if I didn't say your name correctly. I'm promoting you to panelist now, Nancy.
Okay,
Nancy, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Thank you, Jody, and everyone as the chair of the committee and Good evening to everyone, and thank you for volunteering your time for our Mercer Island community. We appreciate all that you do. My name is Nancy Hyatt Morse, and we live on the corner of 84th Avenue Southeast and 57th Street, due west of Island Crest Park. My family has lived here for 33 years and enjoy our park every day. I walk the trails alone, with family, including my 93-year-old mother, grandchildren, and friends. It's a beautiful park we'd like to preserve for our entire community to enjoy. I'm particularly concerned about the proposed bike skills area and safety. The bike skills will attract more cyclists on the trails in the parks as they access the area. Already, we've had dangerous situations with cyclists flying out of the trails onto 84th with cars going up and down the street. This is a disaster waiting to happen. And I'm concerned about the safety of our walkers on these trails, seniors, people walking their dogs, students going to and from Island Park School, ball players on their way up to the ball fields, and little ones playing in Dean's Children's Park. I totally understand the need for our Mercer Island kids and teens to have a safe outdoor space to gather. I just don't think that this proposed bike skills area will best serve them and our community. Thank you again for your time and for listening as we voice our concern.
Thank you.
That was the last of our appearances, Chair.
Okay, then we will move on to our first item of business. The first item on the agenda is the department report and update, and we welcome Recreation Manager Ryan Daly.
Good evening, Parks and Recreation Commission. I will share this presentation really quickly and let me know when you see it, please. Is that showing up?
It's there.
It's there. Okay. All right. Look at that picture from today. Gosh, great location. So just a heads up, as we're moving toward the holiday season, we do have a facility closure at the community center. This happens annually. We'll be closed from December 19th through January 2nd. And this is when we do all the big things. It's cleaning the carpets, buffing the floors. We do have some Mercer room floor repairs, touch up paint, media updates, cleaning equipment. And then one of our big staff tasks is also updating our website and the software we use to be able to update those fees and those services that we offer. So look for that during the last 2 weeks of this year so we can hit the ground running on January 3rd. And we're excited to reopen. And with that, we do have the fitness room back open. It's been closed for a while. We have new equipment in there, new dumbbells, barbells, a chin-up assist machine for those of you who need assistance. I'm sad to say I needed assistance today. I haven't tried to do a chin-up since maybe college, so that was a long wait. But we do have a number of new machines, and it looks great in there. So if you have a chance, please swing by, check out that new facility. And access will be free for all through January. So we want people to come in, get accustomed, get a feel for it, understand what a great community asset that is, so that we can, I hope you guys can't see that Sam said that I need to, big boys need to do chin-ups, but we're excited to open that up here in January and get people in the facility. Oops. There we go. With that, we have new operating hours. We will be opening an hour earlier starting in 2023. So Monday through Thursday, that'll be 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then Friday, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we are closed on Sundays. However, you will notice, and over the last couple of months, we really haven't been closed on Sundays. We've had a number of rentals utilizing that time. And so I just want to highlight that that is an opportunity for the community to come in and rent the facility, whether it be for pickleball, basketball, meeting rooms, or the Mercer room. That's an opportunity that there is to go beyond those public hours that we have posted. So any questions, please feel free to email myself or the staff, and we can get you hooked up with those opportunities. Aubrey Davis Trail Safety Improvement Project update. Gosh, that's kind of a long title. As you know, we've, as staff, have been working with WashDOT and are working on a revised engineering design. We'll be re-engaging the commission at the January meeting, and we'll be reviewing those revised drawings and the commission will receive some recommendations from the design team as well as coming from WashDOT. So stay tuned, more will come out on that as we get closer to that January meeting. Upcoming restoration events. The next one is this coming weekend, Saturday, December 3rd at Clark Beach. And then we have another one, I believe this might be freshly added, Saturday, December 17th at Luther Burbank. So for more information, take a look at that website link there. And we will have a number of these opportunities coming forward in 2023. Park maintenance and our natural resources team have been busy. Right when it looked like they were getting all the leaves picked up and things were looking good, hey, snow fell and snow and ice. And so this crew, I'll give them a shout out this morning. We had the ability to open up for a rental this morning at 9 a.m. And before I arrived, there was de-icer down and things were set to be able to access the facility. Huge shout out to them. It's extremely important. You'll also notice that throughout Luther Burbank and the pathways, they de-ice those and they plow those when necessary. And so that's extremely helpful for our residents who want to get out and enjoy the parks in a safe manner. Aubrey Davis vegetation improvements, those have occurred, and that work should be completing later this week. And 156 tripping hazards were repaired in 2022. Some of you may have noticed at different locations. Off the top of my head, I can think of Mercer Park and here at Luther Burbank. There were areas on our trails where the roots of trees were kind of heaving up that asphalt, and those were cut out and repaired. Huge amount of work, very important for us to maintain that access. And so another shout out to the parks maintenance crew on doing those repairs. Illuminate MI, maybe one of my favorite events that we run. Many of you have probably noticed the lights in town center. We do have the tree lighting ceremony this weekend, or on Friday, actually tomorrow, as well as the Firehouse Munch. It's a great opportunity for the community to come out, enjoy the park, enjoy the weather, enjoy the lights. A lot of fun. We will have the Mercer Island High School choir on hand singing, as well as the fire station opening up at 6:30 with chili, an art fair, activities, and of course, Santa will be there. So more information is located on that website down at the bottom. And just a huge thank you to our sponsors. We didn't do the normal huge push that we have in the past, but these sponsors stepped up immediately to assist. And I just want to call out the Mercer Apartments, the MI Community Fund, Strong Jewish Community Center, and Arts WA and NEA. Without them, this really wouldn't be possible. It shows tremendous community support. And as you can see on the left there, Illuminate MI has a number of events that we partner with or the Recreation Division actually hosts. And so those are listed there on the left. Great opportunity for us to come together as a community. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out or ways you would like to become involved. With that, I thank you and am happy to take any questions or move right forward to you, Chair. There we go.
I am seeing no hands up.
Yeah.
So I'm taking it back. Thank you, Ryan. The next item of regular business is to review and consider approving the minutes from the November 3rd, 2022 meeting. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 2022 meeting, please?
This is Commissioner Westberg. I so move.
Okay, we have first, do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Burstein. I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Westberg and a second by Commissioner Burstein. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions or comments before we vote? No. All right. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones. Will the city staff please conduct a roll?
Thank you, Chair. Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Westberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Markson,
Aye.
Commissioner Burstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Hay.
Aye. Great, the motion passes and the minutes are approved. And we're already on to item number 3, which is the bike skills area update and conceptual design. And we're going to welcome Jason Kintner, Chief of Operations, Elaine Summergren, Deputy Public Works Director, and Sarah Bluvis, Capital Improvement Project Manager, as well as some consultants to give us our first look. So welcome.
Good evening, Jason Kintner, Chief of Operations. Chair McCarthy, can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Awesome, thank you. So this evening with us, along with the city staff, we also have Maddie Ferson, Alex Fowler, Arnie Castro from the American Ramp Company, as well as Leslie Batten from Board and Vellum. And so we'll just dive right into it. As you know, the bike skills area was created in the 1970s, originally in Upper Luther Burbank Park. It was closed last October of 2021. Since then, there's been numerous conversations and discussions about what to do with the future facility. And the commission actually earlier this year in July requested a formal recommendation or request in front of this city council to design a new bike skills area at Dean's Children's Park. And also rescinded the recommendation to temporarily reopen the facility in Upper Luther. Following that Parks Commission meeting, staff did go to the city council and request an appropriation request, which the council approved, a $75,000 appropriation request to begin the design and the community engagement platform for a new bike skills area in Dean's Children's Park. Since then, the city has gone through a formal request for qualification process where we have now retained the American Ramp Company to begin that 30% design and complete the public engagement process. They've also have Board and Vellum on the team as well, which is a local firm here to help with the community engagement component of it. And we'll get into just the nuts and bolts of both sort of those pieces here in just a second. But we're very, very active already to date on this bike skills, this new bike skills area. A survey was posted on Let's Talk in November. It actually closed on November 21st. And we've actually had one public meeting in an open house style format out at the park earlier this month. And we saw a number of the commissioners out there, as well as a number of council members on site as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Maddie and Leslie and team, and they're going to walk through the survey results, and then we'll also share with you the hot off the press conceptual layout for the new facility. And then I'll take the presentation back and then talk about the next steps. I'll remind the commission that this is an iterative process. This is a long process. We're not making a decision tonight on the final design. This is just the first touch or the first bite of the apple, as you might say. And there will be multiple additional opportunities for feedback along the way. And we'll talk about those at the end. So with that, Maddie or Leslie, I'll let you talk about the survey results.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone who took the time to fill out the survey. I know that that can be an onerous process, so thank you for contributing your time, and also for those who did show up to the public meeting. It was a great opportunity to gather information and get some feedback from Island residents. So the first couple of pages will be a summary of the online survey, and then the last page we'll discuss a little bit about the outcomes of the public meeting. So from the survey, it turns out the majority of the participants were residents of the island. Only 3% were off island from Seattle or Bellevue. And it turns out when we dove into the details a little more, they were actually people who still regularly visit Island Crest weekly, if not monthly. So while they may be off island, they're still very much a part of the island, and especially Island Crest Park. Zooming back out largely to the rest of the participant group, about 80% of participants in the survey visit Island Crest Park monthly, and breaking that down further, there's a very good portion of that that's weekly and daily. Looking within Island Crest Park, the most common element were the trails, not surprisingly, because those are beautiful, as are the open space and forested areas. Coming in for a tie were both the athletic and recreational fields, as well as Dean's Children's and Dragon Park. And within the children's parks, the play areas, the playgrounds were predominantly the most common, most popular feature, followed by the open space coming in a close second. And then the picnic shelters were used, but they just were not as highly used as the playgrounds or the open space. We did ask for general comments from participants just to voice their general thoughts about a bike skills area in Island Crest Park. And we've got a various array of responses, both in support and raising concerns, but they all generally compile down to like 3 overarching themes for both sides. So for instance, on the concern side, there is concern, as we've heard some of the guests this evening discuss, that they're concerned about conflicts with trail users. There's concerns about conflicts with the play area and some of the children that may be in that area or commuting to the school. And so how will that conflict be addressed? On the support side, there are members who think that it's a really great addition both to the park and to the community as a whole, that it's something that's needed on the island. On the contrary side, or on the contrast, the concern about the environmental impacts. How will these trails and the bikes either wear, erode on the soils or remove or impact trees, since it is largely a very forested open space area. On the positive side, there was a lot of support for it being a really fun activity for all ages. It's not targeted at one age group, but it can go all the way from beginners, 0 to 12, if they're even on bikes at 0, all the way up to advanced adult age levels. So it's not a restrictive age group. And then on the concern, there was concern about parking. Parking is already an issue there, especially during the athletic season. So how will this impact that with an additional facility? As well as access. How are people going to be accessing the park? In support, there was a lot of interest in the mental and physical health of kids. How are they going to be able to access like outdoor activities that are not, pay to play type event, and then an alternative to organized sports. Follow-up question about the parking. It turns out that most people who are going to participate in the bike skills area are planning to either bike or ride at about 77% participants. So hopefully that calms the concern about parking, but we do hear that as a relevant concern. Diving down into the bike skills area users, it turns out it's a really good spread across age and skill. So demonstrating once again the importance of making it open to all ages and all skill abilities. And then the really nice thing is that bike users or participants are planning to ride at least daily or weekly. So it will be a pretty popular spot once it gets constructed. Next page, please.
Uh-oh.
Are we frozen?
There we go.
Great. Okay, so we did ask just in general if there were certain elements that could make people really excited, maybe if they weren't a bicyclist themselves. One of the top item that came up was clear signage about rules and routes, like skill level routes and kind of right-of-ways and interactions with pedestrians and who has right-of-way. Stewardship and forest restoration was also a very popular element that people wanted to see, along with a safe spectator area. Wayfinding interpretive signs came in with 4th, not as high, but still it was an important element that people would like to see. Kind of going back onto that support, participants mentioned that one of the reasons that they were excited about the bike skills area was that it provides this great recreation option for kids and teens, but also expands the kind of portfolio of the types of programs that the city is offering within its recreational offerings. We also asked, since there is Dragon Park, if it would be nice to incorporate some type of theme into the bike skills area. And it actually did not favor that, or didn't come in as that strong of a preference for participants. But if they had to pick one, Dragon was definitely the most highly written in suggestion. So getting more into the specific features about what participants would like to see, berms, drops, and jumps were top 3 that all participants wanted to see, along with some other features that would kind of make it a little more interesting in between. As far as jumps, the table toss was number 1, taking about 50% of all of the votes, with doubles coming in second and gaps as third. Rideable features were definitely something that participants were interested in, with kind of that larger kind of piece, more rectangular piece ride through, like the cargo container coming in really top choice, with the kind of a theme of that snake that you see there coming in second, and a little barrel as third. As far as the online survey ranked choice features, turns out that the skinny ladder was the most favored, is ranked the highest of what riders would like to see there. Number 2 is the advanced jumps and snake ladder, were those 2 tied together. Number 3 was the feature ride around. 4 is the wooden berm turn. 5 is the double roller. I love just saying all these names because they're so fun. 6 is the step down roller, and 7 was the beginner intermediate jump line. So we've got a good spread there between what types of features the users wanted to see. And then the next and last on the outreach summary boards, next page, please. This last page is largely about the preferences that the public, at the public meeting. We had 2 sections, we had 2 different groups where we divided up, and people got stickers, and they got 3 stickers each. Oh, this is great. So about 50 or 60 people showed up, and it was an informal presentation between those 2 groups. And it was an opportunity to discuss generally the project that as it was planned, and just get feedback, what people were thinking initially about the site. We walked over to the site so people could see it in person and get a feel for it. And then had basically a discussion after that based on how participants were thinking about the site. Next page. And then they put their stickers down. So this is a combination of the 2 boards. Again, as you can see here, the advanced jumps, progressive jumps were very popular. In addition to the restoration and safety, those were also very popular and sensitive to the site. So we're kind of taking this, and American Ramp has the great opportunity to take all of this really great feedback from the survey and the public meeting to present to you what their initial site plan is. And that is it as far as the outreach summary. Do we want to jump right into the site plan or open for questions on the outreach portion?
I'll leave it to, I think Chair McCarthy, this might be a good break time to ask questions regarding the survey and the community feedback before we jump into the conceptual.
Yeah, great. I see that Commissioner Hay has a hand up.
Thanks. How many survey results were received?
That is a great question. I don't have that number immediately at my fingertips, but I can definitely get that for you.
That would be great. And is it possible to send us the raw data and any comments that people made in the open-ended boxes?
Yes. Jason, what is your process for that?
Yep, we will send the raw survey data out probably tomorrow. We can package it up and send it to the commission.
Great, thanks.
Perfect. While you're looking for that, Leslie, I'm going to go to Commissioner Westberg for his question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. You captured the preferences of the participants at the open meeting that were in favor of putting the bike skills area in place. But did you make any attempt to capture or synthesize information from the people who were there that may not have been in favor of the bike skills area? What kind of feedback did you get from them?
Yeah, that feedback was captured in generally very much fell within the same commentary that we received on the online survey. It was a lot of trail conflict concerns and environmental concerns. Those 2 were predominantly the opinions that we heard that were not in favor or had concerns about the project.
Thank you.
Great. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions. So how long do you think it will take you to get that information, Leslie?
I was just gonna say it was 173.
Perfect. So 173 online. Okay, well, I'm going to give it back to Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thumbs up again that you can see my screen again. My apologies, my computer is being slow. It's a big file. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Maddie and her team from the American Ramp Company to talk about the conceptual layout. Just a couple notes before I turn it over. The trail alignment fits within the previous area of the adventure playground, which is what we talked about previously. Consideration has been given for multiple age groups and abilities. And then these trails that you see outlined here, they'll talk about it here shortly, but they're essentially 6-foot wide trails with the natural vegetation in between the trails remaining for all the routes. So with that, I will turn it over to Maddie.
Great, thank you, Jason. So as mentioned, my name is Maddie. I am with American Ramp Company. I have been helping to coordinate the development of this project. Sitting next to me is Alex Fowler. He is one of our lead bike park designers and also a bike park builder. And then we also have Arnie joining us on the call. He worked heavily on the design for this bike park. Jason, if you could go to the next slide. Great, so here you will see the concept design that our team put together based on the parameters that we were given by the city, as well as the feedback that we received from the community over the past few weeks. I will just kind of high level talk through this design, and we're here to answer any questions that the commissioners or guests have tonight. So on the south side of this concept here, you will see the existing playground features. So our team really wanted to keep that in mind while designing. Our goal is to design parks that work for families, work for the communities that are going to be utilizing this facility. So at the bottom of the screen in the purple kind of highlighted area is the bicycle playground. This is really targeted for users ages 2 to 12 years old. We can include features here that are fun, like this tunnel that you see on the right side of the screen. The features are lower to the ground, these wooden progressive bike ramp features. So we want to minimize any risk with the kids' playground, but also give them a challenging, safe course where they can develop those skills and have fun at the same time. Bicycle playgrounds are also great for new bikers. It's a safe, non-intimidating place for them to learn how to navigate skills that they might encounter on a mountain bike course. The other thing with this placement is we wanted parents to be able to bring all of their kids to the park. And while some want to play on more traditional playground structures, others could ride their bike on the bicycle playground and still be in a close area to their parents. So we were hoping that by locating the bicycle playground kind of towards the south main entrance, people are naturally going to be riding their bikes slower. They're going to be more cautious as they're entering the biking area. On the right side of the bike park, you will see 2 trails that take you up to the start mound. One trail, which is the red one, it's just a pretty straightforward trail with no features. We wanted to add a little bit of variety with some skills aspects. So the trail to the right in the orange includes some of those progressive bike ramp wooden features. It has some of those A-frames and other features that were identified in the community engagement. We also wanted this area to be a natural buffer for those using the trails for walking or with their kids on the east side of the park. So naturally, whenever you are riding your bike up the hill, you're going slower, you're pedaling, you're more aware of your surroundings. So we wanted to work within the site to just design the park in a way that kind of minimized any conflicts that might arise. We've also looked at the top northeast corner of the area to include another access point to the Start Hub. So we will work with the city and the community to keep evaluating other access points. This is just our first draft and kind of what we've evaluated so far. Once you're at the Start Hub, we have two kind of downhill line options. The green highlight is going to be the more beginner-friendly line. This includes progressive bike ramp feature tabletops, so the wooden tabletop features, as well as wooden berm turns and dirt berm turns. We also have a series of rollers that kind of bring you back down to the start area. Then we have our blue line, which is our progressive jump line. So this is more intermediate. The jumps, can become bigger in size as you go down the trail. So we really just tried to, within the space and based on the feedback, provide a bike park that every user in the community could come out, they could learn, they could challenge themselves. And if you guys have any questions before we move on, Jason, if you want to open it up, or we can keep going, whichever you prefer.
I can pause here since I have this open. It might be easy to talk to it and just talk through some of the specificity if there's questions from the commission or Council Liaison Reynolds.
Just a quick one. I notice a beginner line and an intermediate line, but no advanced line. What's the thinking on that?
That's due to the size constraint of the park itself. There just isn't room to have something larger. I want to make sure that it caters to everyone, not just the advanced riders. If there was a bigger area, we would incorporate that.
So could we have done, for example, a beginner and an advanced and skip the intermediate, or is there not terrain that would support that?
There isn't terrain that would support that, and then also it would actually be a danger to the users. We want to make sure that that our parks are progression based rather than pushing people directly from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Burstein.
This is Commissioner Burstein. Two quick questions. Elements 15 and 18 are not described in the picture. So what are they?
Yes, great question. I actually do have a photo of some examples on the next slide.
Okay.
Essentially, they are dirt jumps that include our PBR ramps leading up to the jump. So there still is the sustainable ramp built in, but the rest of the jump is dirt.
And the second quick question is there any concern of safety and congestion as the beginner and intermediate trails merge?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I also have examples of signage that we would include in the park that lets users know trails will be merging. Merged trails are very common in mountain bike and bike parks. So we would identify that and make sure users are aware through signage at the entrance, which shows a layout of the bike park, as well as signage along the routes, letting them know what features lie ahead on the trail.
Awesome, thank you.
Commissioner Hay.
Thanks. I'm looking at the figures underneath the trails here. We see shapes, stars, and circles. I presume those to be trees and vegetation. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if the trail is going over those items, those would be removed. Is that correct?
No, so the design was actually built based off of topographical surveys and tree surveys. So our designers have designed this park to not interfere with the trees and vegetation that the city has determined must stay in the park.
Okay, so for instance, number 6 here, which appears to go directly through a tree, that you're saying that tree would remain there?
Correct.
Okay, does that pose any risk to the riders to be riding right next to a large tree?
Minimally. I mean, mountain biking is you're surrounded by trees constantly. So what we do is we actually make sure that the path is 6 feet wide, which is actually wider than what you would find on your typical mountain bike course, to ensure that there's enough room for the rider to navigate between the trees.
Okay, and one follow-up question. Do you have an idea how many trees and how much vegetation would need to be removed for this design?
It's our goal to not remove any trees. We would clear and grub on the pathway itself, to make sure that we have proper compaction on the soils. But it's our goal not to remove any trees, and based on the information that we have there so far, there shouldn't be the need to remove any.
Thanks.
And if I may, Commissioner Hay, one of the follow-up items we will do with our next step in this design process is work with this conceptual layout with our restoration team, just to ensure make sure that the trees are aligned with the trail accurately, right? It's a topographic survey, it's a tree survey that was provided, but we still want to get out there and truth this layout with our team out in the field to make sure that we mitigate and minimize those impacts as well.
Great. All right, Commissioner Westberg.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Westberg. I'll have some general comments to make once your presentation is over, but just for clarification purposes, is the fence that you show there the existing fence, or is that the fence that where it would be fenced once the project is done? Because that doesn't seem to follow the current fence line.
It's our understanding that is the existing fence line. That is the information which we were provided. However, these things are very flexible and we can adjust accordingly.
And where are the tennis courts? Are they just immediately south of the bicycle playground area? I was trying to locate this in my mind, particularly relative to where the current fence is.
So Commissioner Westberg, the tennis courts are going to be in the lower, they're going to be off the screen. They're going to be in the lower left hand of the screen.
So they're off the screen. Okay, so
they're off the screen. And I believe this is the existing fence from the survey that was provided to ARC.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I wasn't sure what that rectangle, the gray rectangle, whether that was supposed to be the tennis courts or whether that's the part of the playground area. And another point is when we first started looking at Dean's, a number of us talked about it. And we said it was going to be really important to have, since you have this function here, which is clearly somewhat incompatible with a playground area for preschoolers. There needed to be some kind of physical separation between the bike park and the preschool and the play areas. And that doesn't seem to have been incorporated into this design. And maybe that wasn't part of the requirement, but I wanted to raise that again, as it was a very important factor in consideration in our early discussions that there be a barrier, a fence, or some barrier that would keep bicycles and preschoolers separate. And it doesn't look like there's much room to incorporate something like that in this design unless it's squished a bit.
Yeah, Jason, I know from ARC's perspective, we tried to design the park to just create natural barriers based on the features and how they are laid out. So that is why we put the bicycle playground, which is really designed for toddlers to younger age children near the existing play structures. That's also why we tried to keep the return lines, which you will be pedaling up the hill on the east side of the bike park to create a natural buffer between the play structures and the trails.
Yeah, and I'll just say that this is an early concept layout, right? This isn't the final design, and Commissioner Westberg's point is valid, and we will be sure to incorporate that feedback into the next version of this design.
Thank you. Commissioner Cohen.
Yes, thanks, Don Cohen. These are similar to some of Rory's questions. What can you orient me the gray things, the one trapezoid and the other things? Tell me what those are and what's there, and the gray circle above there too.
These are existing playground spaces according to the survey, if I'm not mistaken. So the trapezoid, there's a playground feature here, so it's probably the outline of the perimeter of that play structure. So a lot of these play structures have wooden timbers that incorporate that area and hold the materials in. That's what you're seeing here.
Well, okay, but describe a little. I mean, I was out there, and I'm still having trouble. Like the circle up here, is that separate play area? Is that right, Jason?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and what about the squarish thing over on the left of the yellow path? Well, over there, what's that?
There's another play structure over there. There's a swing set over there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And then you've got, so Dean's Children's Park has 3 or 4 different playground structures in this area. And so some of them aren't large pieces. Some of them are just like individual pieces, like a playground or a swing set, which is, I believe, this small rectangle here on the left, lower left.
So last follow-up. So right now, the one that you said you think it may be the swing set there, the entrance to that area for somebody going in there now is to the west of that. So the yellow access trail is, maybe this is for the consultant, is in this drawing is a new access in addition to the one that's over, well, you probably can't see my cursor, but that's to the west of that square.
No, I believe that the yellow is the existing path already to this playground area. So the
okay.
swing set is to the west of that path, which is what is being shown here. So that's the existing path.
Okay, it's a different swing set. I'm thinking of the little one that looks like the state of Utah upside down is probably the small one that I'm thinking of. Can I ask one other thing? Is it possible for a moment, to remove the part on this that's got all of the different jump features, just so I can see what, how close Island Crest Way is and what's going on there a little easier, or can't that be done at this particular junction?
I can't do that here. There is a slide at the end, Maddie, I believe, that doesn't have that picture on it. That just is the layout of the park.
Yeah,
So
Yes.
just at some time. I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah, Jason, it's not as detailed as this, but we can provide this top view without that call out on the right side of the rendering.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you. Couple questions. Looking at the two, what are they called? The two return lines. Other than variety, is there any other reason that you need 2 rather than 1?
No.
Okay. And as other commissioners mentioned, I do share it. And again, we just saw this afternoon. So these are kind of initial reactions, but there is a big congestion point there between kind of points 1, kind of 13, 14, 6 in that area. I'm wondering, the kind of the green and blue runs, if they could kind of be reconfigured a little bit closer to the west edge and then cut off, so you kind of get a little bit more separation between the bicycle playground and kind of call it the children's playground, existing children's playground areas. Just a thought there. And then in terms of access points, obviously you've got the 2 showing here, one coming off of Island Crest Way on the, I guess that'd be the northeast corner, and then the existing one. Were there other ones that were considered that were discarded, or these are really the only 2 you thought of?
Yeah, great question. So at this time, we are evaluating potential options for an entrance on the west side of the park.
Okay. And Chair, if I may, just one last question. One of the commenters tonight, I believe from the mountain bike community, suggested that some of the, I'll call them jumps, or we're not sure what those types of things, that they should be, dirt as opposed to wooden. Do you have any initial response to that?
Yeah, so we incorporated the wooden features to, number one, we want to minimize the impact on the environment. So we don't want to truck in a whole bunch of material. And then we also want to make sure that the project is sustainable for years and years to come. And so it doesn't require nearly as much maintenance to upkeep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Markson.
I have a really simple question. The like on the trails, there's kind of small circles, like near the junction point, for example, of the green and the blue trail. Are those bumps? Is that what you said, like dirt bumps?
Yeah, those are just earth features made out of dirt.
Okay.
And so it's easier to bring two trails together using dirt features that integrate into one another. So that's why that's there. And then to touch base on one of the previous comment regarding why it's sort of congested there. It's our understanding that there's a sort of ravine sort of right there that we're at the moment we're exploring the option of being able to go into it, but it's our understanding at this point that we are not to design anything into that area. But if we get approval to have build trail into there, then it would separate things quite a bit. So currently it's circumstantial that it comes into together like that, but we would love to expand the parcel as much as we can.
And that I guess I'll withhold comments on the overall. That's just, you answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Reynolds.
Yes, just following up on Commissioner Strzok's question. If the trail is almost entirely wood, which I think I'm understanding to be true, does that mean this could conceivably be a 4-season park?
Yes, that's the intention. When we started the design, we wanted to design a facility that could be used in all seasons. So yes, the wood features are cedar planks with a galvanized steel framework. So they are municipal grade and designed to withstand all weather types.
And did they need to be, treated or something to keep them from getting moss growth and other things that would make them hazardous?
They do not. Nope.
Okay.
If I may, I'll just add, Councilmember Reynolds, one of the components of this project will be at the end of this project, when this is constructed, ARC will sit down with our maintenance teams to go over maintenance protocols and inspection frequencies and walk our staff team through what the typical annual routine maintenance will be at this facility for this site.
Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in here. I just wanted to understand, I believe that Dean's Park is set to be redone in the near future. And I just wanted to clarify that was going to be done at the same time as the bike skills area. Is that correct, Jason?
So Dean's Children's Park, let me clarify. Dean's Children's Park, the playgrounds in the park are set to be, yes, they're set to be replaced as part of the next budget biennium, assuming Councilmember Reynolds and his colleagues approve the budget on Tuesday night. But yes, the Dean's Children's Park playground features, I believe the castle, perhaps one or two other components in here, just because there are so many different features, are on that replacement schedule for the next biennium, so 23 and 24.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that in case there was something that might, like perhaps the swings that are right now on the left side of the path, that was something that could be moved over. So everything, all of the playground equipment's on one side and the bike skills is on the other side.
There is definitely an opportunity there to design with both projects in mind to satisfy both needs.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Hay.
Thanks. My question is along the same lines as some of the others we heard tonight regarding the safety of many different types of users and ages of users mixing in this area. So I'm curious what type of separation you envision here. Would it be a fence? Would it be something else? I know that we're not seeing anything on here right now. So where would you put that? What could that look like?
I think that's to be determined, Commissioner Hay. This is still the early conceptual layout, and that is something that we will work in the design, and you'll see that in one of the next iterations in terms of how we separate the spaces. And Maddie will talk about some of the signage we have identified for this site, but in terms of the actual physical separation that you're hearing that we're talking about this evening, that'll probably come in the next version of this layout.
Okay, and Commissioner Cohen, and then we will go on from there.
Oh, this is just Don Cohen, this is just a question about the wooden features, because I'm not a mountain bike person. Are these noisy at all? Like over near Ellis Pond, when you ride your bike over that wooden pathway there, sometimes you hear clunk, 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 or are they
No,
noisy?
No, these are securely fastened.
Well, those are securely fastened too, I think. I think it may be the distance between the planks or something, but anyway, thank you.
Okay, so let's go continue with the presentation, and then we can do more questions at the end.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to show you guys some real life photos of what these features look like in other bike parks. So the top left photo is one of our wooden berm turns. The top middle photo is a elevated tunnel, which could be incorporated into the bicycle playground. There is opportunity to get creative with these tunnels. So if the community decided they would like to see a dragon feature, perhaps we could look at making a dragon head that kids ride through. Or we could keep it more natural and do the wood planks around the tunnel. So a lot of different options that we can look into, just depending on what the community wants to see. The top right photo is an example of using rocks to secure dirt mounds and the berms. So we would propose putting rocks similar to this around the start mound and the dirt jumps to help with the erosion and maintenance of those features. The bottom left photo is an example of the wooden tabletop jump. So this is a rollable tabletop. These are excellent for progression because users can roll over the feature if they're newer to riding or are not yet comfortable with actually getting air and jumping features. So you can see this lady is kind of rolling through that jump. More advanced riders can actually get air over these jumps. So it's a nice progressive feature. And then the bottom middle and bottom right are examples of those wooden jumps. We have our wooden kickers going into, the dirt jumps. So our wooden features would lead up to the jump. This is really important for the sustainability and maintenance of those features. One of the most important things when jumping is to have a consistent takeoff. And so having these wood planks guarantees that every time the rider hits the feature, they're going to have the same experience versus all dirt, which can rut out, or if it's rained on, you have to close down the dirt feature because the bikes can actually start to damage that feature. So if you have any questions about how those features are installed, Alex installs hundreds of these, so he would be happy to answer any questions regarding that. And if not, we can move on to the next. So here's,
sorry, I see that Vice Chair Struck has a question.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. The question I thought about it regarding the safety of the riders on these, I'll just call them jumps and so forth. In the kind of the mountain biking community environment, is there like an underwriter's lab that kind of gives a seal of approval that these are, relatively safe structures or anything like that?
I'm not sure I follow. Would you mind repeating the question?
Yes. So, I mean, is there any kind of outside agency, safety agency that kind of reviews these structures and says, yes, these are these types of jumps and so forth have been properly constructed, et cetera, et cetera?
So there is no such third party that exists that would perform that I am aware of, but we are happy to work with a local cycling advocacy group as well as this local cycling high school team to essentially get their, I guess, seal of approval since they'll be the ones using it.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Commissioner Struck, we work with our insurance authority to make sure that this facility is designed properly and meets our safety and liability requirements from an insurance purpose as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Markson.
Yes, thank you. This is Commissioner Markson. I just wondered how many, or if you've worked in the Pacific Northwest or Seattle area, Seattle Bellevue area before. or designed
Yeah.
parks in our area? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So American Ramp Company designs and builds parks all across North America and the world for that matter. Yes, we have done a lot of work in the Pacific Northwest, and Arnie, who actually worked on this design, lives in Seattle, and he is an avid mountain biker and is familiar with the local trails, and kept all of that in mind while working on this design.
Okay, great. Let's continue on. Thank you.
Great questions. So here is just kind of some samples of signage that we have incorporated at other bike parks we have completed. On the right side, you will see an entrance sign, which includes the rules of the bike park, as well as an overall map of the park. It identifies which lines are beginner or intermediate, where the spectator viewing areas are. So we would want those posted at any entrance in the park. And then on the left side, you will see more trail type signage. So the top three would be examples of signs you would find along the trails that alert riders to which features are coming up on the trail or if trails are merging. We would also post, wrong way signs so users aren't accidentally going up the wrong path. Then we would identify each trail at the start hub as an intermediate or a beginner line. So similar to skiing or snowboarding, you can have your green lines, your blue lines. So those would be clearly marked at the start hub so users know which trail they should be riding and to stay within their riding limits.
All right.
So yeah, as mentioned earlier, there are, this is just the first design concept based on the feedback we've received thus far. So we are currently still evaluating various entrances into the facilities, especially on the west side of the park. We're also going to, like Jason mentioned, make sure that what we're designing works environmentally with the trees and the existing site location. We're going to take all of the feedback we've received tonight, and we're also posting another community survey online tomorrow to receive additional input from the community for the next design revision. And there have been some great suggestions about perhaps doing roundtables to bring different user groups together and get their input. So there are still a few more revisions that our team will be working on based on, community feedback and the commissioner's feedback as well. And the next slide, I just want to bring up a few things that we noticed just early on during our in-person session and online surveys. So one thing that was mentioned was a pump track, and that was mentioned a lot during the in-person session. The suggested location was on the north side of the park, as you can see here. So we just wanted to let the commissioners know that if that is a feature that the community and the city would like to move forward with, we can absolutely look at designing that. It would impact the rest of the trails. So the bike park would have to be redesigned, and we would likely lose some of those jump and flow elements. And as Alex mentioned earlier, we are looking to expand the design into the west side of the park where the dotted line is. That area is currently under review. So we're working closely with the city and our environmental partners just to ensure that it is usable space. And once we get the green light, we will look at adding an alternative line in that area.
So next steps, as I talked about earlier, this is just the first bite of the apple this evening. We will post this conceptual layout to Let's Talk, and then we will shortly be launching a second public survey to solicit additional public input that will be available to the community through mid-December. Our consultant team will be working through the holidays and revising the concept, the conceptual design, using that feedback, and that should be completed to us by the end of the year. I know Ryan's going to talk about the PRC planning schedule for 2023, and I'm expecting that we will have a report back to the commission in January regarding that updated concept design and additional feedback that we received. But that's not it. there's still more. Once we're back in front of the commission, we expect to have a second community meeting, which is planned in mid-January, and then a final third survey will go out to the community at the end of January for the updated design. At a high level, your schedule looks like this. So we're here this evening talking about the concept layout to the commission. In early 2023, we'll be back in front of the commission with a recommended 30% design. And we'll be looking for a recommendation from this commission that will go to the city council sometime in early 2023. I'm not going to put a date on it yet because I know there's lots of discussion that needs to take place regarding this facility. We want to make sure that there's ample time to have that conversation or those conversations. We anticipate in spring of 2023, the design will be developed and the construction project will go out to bid. And then we're hoping, fingers crossed, to start construction in late spring of 2023. So with that, I will stop sharing, and we're looking for any additional questions or general feedback from the commission this evening.
Thank you. I'm going to just jump to Commissioner Westberg because he had a question that was put on hold earlier.
No, I was just going to, in response, offer just a couple of general thoughts, not questions, and that is the entrance from Island Crestway actually takes this project outside of the boundaries of the former camp activity, and it cuts across a trail that leads from the elementary school into Dean's Children's Park. So I would urge the designers to look very closely and carefully at an alternate access point, particularly one coming from the west side, from around the back of the tennis courts or between the tennis courts and the playground. Again, just I'm really concerned about the lack of, at least at this conceptual phase, of a physical barrier, some indication that there would be a barrier between the playground area and the bike park. So I think that needs to be explored. And my general reaction is parking may become an issue, because if this is built and it's as cool as it looks in those pictures, word's going to get out. And I think you'll have riders coming from around the region to give this a try. I may even get a mountain bike myself. So I think that's something that we may need to look at or consider down the road. So those are my general comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Cohen?
Yes, Don Cohen. I have two questions, and I don't know if they're for Jason or the consultants or both. One, so where in the process, Jason, that you described, will whatever environmental review, drainage, and those kinds of things, where does that get inserted, or is that already being done?
It's being considered as part of the design. It's usually with public works projects or park projects. Again, you start with the survey, the general survey, you start to build the project, and those environmental concerns, the utility impacts, those are part of the design process. We will know those as we get further in this design. Right now, we have the layout in front of us, and we have some general ideas on paper. As those ideas start to get vetted further, we start to overlap that with our utility layer and our environmental team to address those environmental risks and the utility risks you're talking about. So it happens through the course of the process, and it will happen congruently with this process as it continues to move forward.
Okay, thank you for that. So my second question has to do with, at one time when we were first talking about this location, we talked about how to get word out to people who use the trail system, who may not live on 84th, may live further south of there or wherever it is. We talked, at least we broached the idea of mailers or things, because not everybody knows what Let's Talk is, and not everybody normally looks at it. And we've already heard at least one comment tonight from somebody who at least expressed that she didn't feel that the amount of notice was as nice as it might have been. So I guess I would just suggest that the staff can, and whoever the consultant is on outreach, give some thought to that And again, I'm not a big signage person, but maybe temporary signage too, saying something, or mailers. I mean, you send out notices to houses within 300 feet of new construction or renovated construction of a certain type and so forth. So I guess I don't know what it should be, but it should be more than just saying there's going to be a survey and let's talk. And by the way, get your answers in by the middle of December.
Understood. We can certainly look at additional mailers. We've done that we do this for public works projects. So use reference, there's development mailers that go out. We can certainly look at alternative means to reach a broader audience. And we will take that into consideration, certainly as we move forward with our engagement practices.
Commissioner Burstein?
This is Commissioner Burstein, and I apologize if these questions were asked before. My computer decided to reboot, and I was kind of booted off for a few moments. Do we have a rough order of construction timeframe? How long will it take once it starts?
I don't believe we have that yet. We haven't even talked about that yet with our consultant team. That's a good question. I'll sort that answer out with our consultant. I don't want to just throw a number out there.
Yeah.
I want to talk about our team first.
Good. And the other one is, and I believe this would be true, that an eye to the budget when we're far from detailing what the budget would be, but are we within a rough estimate of what the budget was allocated?
That's a great question. And yes, we are. We are within the ballpark number that we have put forward in front of the council for the capital improvement program. Again, that's going to the council next week for adoption. And so, yes, we are in that range, the ballpark.
Cool. Thanks.
Commissioner Markson? Oh, you're muted, Sarah.
Sorry, I lowered my hand and unmute. I want to just express that I really appreciate the design, the conceptual design that you showed us. I know that even though Mercer Island has a lot of parks and trail spaces, we actually, in my mind, don't have enough given the number of people that live here. So we're always working with a constrained environment. And I think that the design concept really uses the space effectively. And I would also say that, like, unlike Snake Hill, which was relatively close to I-90 and also, as we know, kind of buried back in the woods, this is in a spot that's in the center of the island. You have to work a little harder to get to if you want to come from off island. And I kind of think that it's also small enough that you're not going to get people coming just for that thing, in my opinion, given some of the bigger parks that are in the region. So I think from that perspective, I think the design balances a lot of complex factors, and I really appreciate that. And I assume that, yeah, in the 30% design, that, you know, we'll have some of those fencing and access features a little more fleshed out, and, you know, that'll be a really obviously important factor for everyone to get input on. And I know, like, yeah. Anyway, so we'll be really interested to see that. The only thought I had, I mean, it is, given that it is a small park, you know, even, I don't know how many, you know, the high school has, what, 3,000 kids? I should know how many it has because I had a kid there, but it's something like 2,000. I don't know. What is it?
It's less than 2,000.
It's
Okay.
less than 1,000.
It's less than a, no. Is it? Sorry. Okay. Obviously, I don't pay enough attention to that, even though I have a child there. But I guess I'm just picturing, even if each of those kids went to that park, it would be way too crowded, or half the kids, or 1/3 of those kids went to the park, it'd be too crowded. So I don't know if, I don't know, I was thinking about if there was a way to consider how you might control the number of people in some, maybe it's just a signage thing. And then the second part was, potentially, if we want to make a small congregation area that's separate from the playground congregation area, which is under the, you know, the structure that's there. There's a picnic table and stuff, just in case you have high schoolers congregating in some way and you have families congregating, they would have two separate spots. That was the only real comment I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you, Peter Struck. My kind of general comment of the overall project, having just seen it today, is kind of along some of the other commissioners, is I think as you go back to the drawing board, trying to create that separation, and perhaps that means moving to the west as much as possible. I think that's probably, if possible, that's a good thing. And then secondly, and this is maybe more for Jason, but on the slide, you said you hope to have kind of a revised 30% concept by December 30th. Well, my calendar says that's Friday, the holiday week, going into the January 1 New Year's weekend and so forth. Again, I think I guess it's really important that we get it by Friday the 30th, or ideally even earlier, so that not only the commissioners, but even the community can have a sufficient time to kind of really think about this. Because I think, because the slide said you'd hope probably to come to some conclusion by February. And I think if we don't get a sufficient time, that timetable could be challenging. So hopefully everything will work out. Thank you.
So if I could just respond to that real quickly. So Vice Chair Struck, if I don't want to rush this process. So if there is more time that's needed, I mean, I'm on the record saying this, if there's more time that's needed for this process, if the commission wants us to slow this down and go at a slower pace, I'm certainly happy doing that. I'm trying to work within, the time frame that we've talked about with the community and what we think is attainable. January 30th, the holidays are always tough. There's no denying that. Our consultant team is prepared to work on this for us, and so that's the time frame we have. I appreciate that, but again, if we get into January and the commission wants more time, like, just tell me, hey, pump the brakes a bit and let's slow this down. That's perfectly fine if that's what the commission wants. So, but for now, I think we're still going to try and keep to our time frame, and we'll be back in front of you in January, hopefully.
Thank you.
Well, weren't you saying that we're going to have another open house in mid-January? So
we are.
Correct, right. So that would be a next look for the community. Commissioner Hay.
Thanks. I just have a few comments, and my comments reflect what we saw in the survey results, which is that this is super cool. This is going to be an awesome addition to our park system. I really like the natural design with the wood, the rocks. I think that complements that area really nicely. A few things that I think will help this process to move a little bit faster, because I know people want to see this happen, and it is very exciting. We need to see that number one concern addressed, which is the safety. So, the two biggest comments that we saw in the surveys were, this is cool, and we're concerned about the safety. So you guys checked the awesome cool box. And now the next iteration that we see, I would like to see that safety addressed in terms of separating the playground from the bike area. I'd like to see that south access point removed, because that's not going to work to have bikes on that. That's the path that comes from the parking lot. So young families are getting their kids out, the toddlers are running ahead while mom's getting the stroller out for the baby. And you don't have room on that trail right now for strollers and bikes and kids. So I'd like to see different access points on the next iteration. And in terms of this area perhaps becoming very popular, I'd like to consider where we could put additional access points in the future. Just thinking about that, kind of thinking ahead in case this does become a popular place. And that's the main thing, is seeing the safety element so that this can move forward, and then just continue engaging the community, especially the biking community, to make sure that this is something that they want. I think it looks really cool, but I don't ride mountain bikes yet. So I want to make sure the biking community thinks this is exciting, and that we engage the broader community as well. I think that we really need to hear from other groups who are using this space, make sure that they're happy with it as well. So broadening that outreach.
Thank you. All right, I think that wraps up the bike skills area, unless you have any last comments, Jason?
Nope, I appreciate the commissioner's thoughtfulness this evening. It's very helpful for us and the consultant team to go back and revise this layout and this concept. I'm 100% agree with the comments this evening. I think that are right on track with what I expected. And so I look forward to coming back in early 2023 with a revision and incorporating the additional community feedback, and we'll be back in front of you with the next version of it. So thank you all.
Thank you. All right, I am going to propose, before we go on to our fourth item of business, that we have a 10-minute break. So I'm going to say, let's all be back here at 7:16. Everybody remember to mute your microphones and turn off your cameras. Thank you. All right. Is everybody back and ready to go on our fourth item, which is the gift acceptance policy? And for this one item, we welcome Recreation Coordinator Eleanor Knight.
Good evening, everyone. You're going to hop right into it. I just wanted to say thank you for all your really constructive feedback as we kind of move towards the end of this process. We're going to just hop right into the matrix, which you all saw before the meeting. So as in previous meetings, we're going to have those who provided comment kind of explain their comment, and staff's going to speak a little bit on our recommendation. And I'm going to be taking notes in the background. Right. If we want to get started, the grammar and those kind of edits we did kind of in the background. So we can start right here on line 5.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
This is Vice Chair Struck.
Yes.
Thank you. So in the definition of donor recognition object, as I read it again, I kind of thought, well, what do they mean by that? And so I thought that putting in after a donor recognition object is a physical object, comma, for example, a plaque, and there could be other things too, but just to give the reader kind of what are we talking about here? So that was the kind of the thrust of my comment.
Yeah, so staff talked about this a little bit. We don't have a very strong opinion on this, but we want to make sure that there's some flexibility in the language, and that we feel maybe adding examples could lead to some limiting thoughts, and that those kind of gifts will be covered in the gift needs inventory. But we'd love to hear a comment on this as well.
Commissioner Cohen?
This is Don Cohen. I agree with Peter on that one. I always like to have some real world examples rather than just saying physical object. So I agree with Peter, and I don't think that it unduly limits it since it says e.g. or for example.
Could we have more than one example, more than just plaque as the examples? And then have etc. Is that a thing that could happen?
This is Ryan, Recreation Manager. Just to kind of respond to that question. Yeah, I guess kind of I think where staff's coming from on this one. I'll say we're supportive of including an example there. I think it would be fine if we included even just plaque. That would be okay. But I do want to say, staff's feeling would be, we would be open to evaluating other items that could be recognizing that donation, which, off the top of my head could include like, a stake or something like that was in the ground that for some artistic reason, that's what they wanted to put forth. Or, maybe it's some other sort of object like that maybe doesn't fit your traditional definition of a plaque. So I just want to make sure that we leave that open-ended enough to ensure creativity and possibilities that may come forth.
Commissioner Westberg.
I just wanted to say I supported Peter's proposal as well, to just clarify that a little bit. You could say a plaque, an inscription, a monument, something like that, if you wanted other examples.
All right, maybe let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down to the change. Okay, so we've got 1 thumb down, and then I saw 4 thumbs up. Okay, so we're going to say yes, add an example after physical object. And then let's move to the next one.
Yeah, this is Vice Chair Stark again. So, okay, I want to make sure okay, so under 1.1, so the way it currently reads, it says to facilitate and solicit publicly and privately funded gifts and encourage public and private gifts. I thought, just to reword it, just to say to facilitate, comma, solicit, comma, and encourage publicly and privately funded gifts that enhance blah, blah, blah. So basically just dropping that second and encourage public and private gifts. I don't think we need to say the same thing twice in the same phrase.
Eleanor, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I was just rereading it. I personally don't have a strong opinion on this. We feel maybe the word encourage in general is unnecessary because of the purpose statement in the policy document. But of course, we're open to.
If I could just add on to that really quick, Chair. I think I was misreading it earlier as well. And so the way Vice Chair Struck sort of reworded that, I think it makes more sense in that aspect. So I would defer to the commission on that.
Right. Commissioner Hay?
Yeah, I think as it's written in the matrix, it looks like we would be saying encourage twice because encourage is already in there. But it sounds like you're actually merging that first sentence. And I like that. That was going to be my suggestion, is to say facilitate, solicit, and encourage publicly funded gifts, and just take out that second encourage part of it. Does that make sense? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
So the removal of this phrase.
Yeah.
And then adding encourage here.
Yeah, I think when I sent it in, I wasn't as clear as I could have been.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, well, let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down on that change then. Okay, I'm getting a majority. Let's go on to the next one.
Okay, so in sections 1.2.2 and 1.2.4, the way it currently reads, like in 1.2.2, it says to accept gifts of land from private individuals, for-profit corporations, not-for-profit corporations, and public entities, blah, blah, blah. Well, that from private individuals and so forth, that's just the definition of donors and as a defined term. And so my suggestion was to just use the defined term and get rid of that. And I think the staff is suggesting even eliminating the term donors and just saying, as they've written up there, to accept gifts, and just leave it at that. And you don't have no reference to donors. And as I read it, I guess I'm fine with that. I'm not sure that, I guess you'd say to accept gifts from donors and non-donors. That doesn't make any sense. So I think it's fine as suggested by staff.
Yeah, we felt that adding donors back in didn't really add anything to the phrase and made it sound a little clunky. Obviously we can add that word back in, but we feel that this wording is more streamlined.
Right. All right, Commissioner Hay?
So I like staff's suggestion here, but I thought that maybe we could put 1.2.3 above 1.2.2. So just swap those just because of the order of it, because we say accept gifts of land and then reject gifts which would adversely affect, and then to accept gifts other than land. So just putting that gifts of land and gifts other than land back to back, just to make it read a little bit.
So swapping 1.23 and 1.24, or
I think swap 1.22 with 1.23.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Does that make sense? Just so that we have the land and other than land together, or in succession.
Let's have separate votes on both of those.
Okay, so let's do a
thumbs
up, thumbs down on the first one, which is the taking out the term donors, or is that right?
Right.
Okay. So looks like we got a majority on that. And then the next one is to switch 1.2.2 and 1.2.3 in order. Is that right, Eleanor?
Yes.
Okay, so this is to switch the order to make it more streamlined. Okay, and we've got a majority on that, and Commissioner Westbrook has a comment.
Well, I commented on this the last time we looked at this, is using these statements that we reject something. It's similar to 1.4 and a point that Commissioner Hay raised. What is it you're trying to get at with 1.23 that you can't put into a positive statement, or that can't be incorporated into one of the other statements above that? I don't understand what you're trying to do with this reject statement.
So this statement was developed after the last meeting when it was expressed by the commission that we have some sort of financial responsibility statement included. So by including a reject statement, we're not saying, if we were to change to a positive statement, I feel like it would read more as we will accept anything the city can afford rather than we reject things the city can't afford, which I feel like hold different weight.
Well, the financial accountability is you're talking about maintenance.
Yeah, maintenance and
that costs down the road for taking this particular donation.
Right.
It could
installation as well. Yeah.
Well, you could say something that or add this to one of the statements up above it, that it has to meet the city's financial and budgetary requirements.
Ryan, I don't know if you have a response.
That's
Yeah.
the idea.
I think that's true. I think with a statement allowing for the rejection gives staff and even the Parks Commission and the City Council, as they review, another tool in review. If everything is consistently accept it can make it harder to reject items, and that's what this statement basically allows for. I think Commissioner Struck has an item followed up about removing the words financial and broadening that statement as well. But that's staff's position, and I'd be open to the commissioner's input.
Well, it's just that a policy statement should say positively what your policy is, and then by definition, it's everything that isn't stated there is what it isn't. It's what you're gonna, it's what you're gonna reject. So I don't know. It's jarring to me, but I'm not going to follow my sword about it. Ditto with 1.4.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen.
Yes, Don Cohen. Does it make it less jarring, Rory, to say to accept only those gifts which would not adversely affect the Parks and Recs, blah, 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 blah? Or is it the word reject, or is it just the concept of you're not going to do it?
No, the way you stated it, I think, is more acceptable.
So to accept,
you're going to accept only those gifts that don't have an adverse financial, an ongoing and onerous financial burden on the city.
And I'd be okay with that kind of revision in 1.4. Also, I remember the example on 1.4 as being, let's say, Philip Morris Cigarettes wanted to put up a sign, or somebody who was advocating something that was just antithetical to whatever it is and everything, and that staff said that they thought that they needed something that more directly permitted them not to accept it. And so I guess I'm sort of willing to defer to staff's more practical experience with that kind of thing. But maybe, I don't know how staff feels about changing reject in these to, to accept only those gifts, which, and in 1.4, you would just delete the not, which or do not, which advance the sense of
I would say I'm more supportive of the change to 1.22 to accept gifts that would not adversely affect as that wording. I am personally not supportive of changing 1.4 to a positive statement. Only, following the reasoning that me and Ryan had discussed earlier, it just changes our guidance on how gifts would be accepted. By having those reject statements, it gives us it safeguards the power of us to reject things on the basis that they would be unsafe for the community or adverse to the wellness of the community. And you can't, if we say we're going to accept things that are good for the community in every case, that's very different than saying we're going to reject things that are unhealthy.
Yeah, this is Don Cohen. I'm okay with staff's viewpoint on 1.4. And I guess, Commissioner Hayes probably going to have something to say about that, though.
Yeah, Commissioner Hay.
I think we're kind of looking at these both at the same time. So I'll just comment that we only have two statements in the policy that are reject or are in a negative term rather than accept. And so I also tend to agree that if we don't accept it, then there would be means to reject it based on the fact that it doesn't meet this criteria. And so I am more in favor of using positive statements like we have throughout the rest of the document for consistency. That would be my preference, to just reword it into a positive statement. And at the end of the day, if the gift doesn't meet that criteria, it could be rejected because it doesn't advance the health or wellness or safety, or it would negatively impact the department's ability to provide services. So if it doesn't meet that policy criteria, it could be rejected on those grounds. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. If the rest of the policy is all in the positive, I don't feel like us not having the reject statement makes it less powerful, because if something doesn't fit in with our park system and our values on Mercer Island, then it wouldn't be accepted.
If I might ask a clarifying question. So if we were to reword 1.4 to accept gifts which advance the sense of community health, wellness, and safety for the public, to me, that's saying that that's a requirement, that it has to. There's a difference between something that doesn't do something versus something that has to do something. And that's kind of where I'm kind of hung up and concerned on 1.4. 1.3, I actually appreciate Commissioner Westberg's rewording. I think that fits well in that scenario, but that's staff's opinion on that one.
Okay. What about if we had the word only to only? Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
That was going to be my comment as well, that it is restrictive if we say only those gifts. And I do think we should include that in 1.2.3 as I guess it's 2.2 now, as suggested, because we would not want to accept gifts that would adversely impact. Right. So I think making it restrictive and only those gifts in 1.2.2. However, in 1.4, I would not say only, because then we're just saying this is one of our guiding principles for the type of gifts that we accept, just like we have throughout the rest of the document. So, we wouldn't say to accept only those gifts that promote health and wellness, but we would accept gifts that meet this criteria.
Commissioner Westberg.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Hay. You could say something like that. It's a policy of the department that gifts, to the extent possible, advance a sense of community health, wellness, and safety to the public. period. Broad general guideline that gives you a lot of wiggle room to make decisions, along with all the other criteria that are in the document.
But Ryan, you feel like that not having a reject statement doesn't give you the ability to accept gifts that are not appropriate, or that you would have to accept any gift?
So my concern actually is not on the rejection side. It's not allowing for gifts that don't specifically enhance community health, wellness, or safety of the public, or something in those guidelines. I like the reject statement there. Now, I do have a benefit of a Parks Commission that I get to come back to next year if there's a tweak that needs to be made. So I similar to Commissioner Westbury, I'm not looking to die on my sword on this one by any means.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to move forward with the commission's desire, and like every other policy that we have, come back and let's talk about it if there's an issue there. I gotta say again, this isn't an issue that we've had in the past. So it's, you know, until there is, I think that's something that we could address in the future.
All right, well, let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, first of all, on the now 1.2.2 being a positive statement, let's do that one first. Where are we? Thumbs up, thumbs down, people, on changing that one to a positive. That's for the new 1.2.2. Okay, we've got a majority on that one.
I think it's 1.2.3.
Yes,
that's what I wanted to just clarify, that it's the new 1.2.3.
2.3.
Yeah.
And then Eleanor, are you tracking these updates?
Yeah, so it was 1.2.3, it became 1.2.2.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, oh, maybe not.
I don't know. Like, I thought
Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Okay, good. And
Yeah,
then, okay.
And if I could just read that real quick, what we're looking at having that say is to accept gifts which would not adversely affect ... Does that sound correct?
Yeah, it says to accept only those gifts that would not adversely affect.
This is Vice Chair Struck, and my original suggestion was to drop the word after Park and Recs Department financial and just say ability to provide.
Right.
And the reason I thought that was in today's environment, for example, the city probably has the financial ability, but they can't find the people. So you could say, well, you know, if we don't have the people, you know, we can't provide the service.
Got it.
Yeah, we were supportive of that change as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And so on the new 1.2.2, we all agreed that we're taking out the qualifier financial and just ability. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. I gotta go down here so I can see. Okay, yes, and we agree on that part too. Okay, so on the 1.4, how are people feeling on changing that to a positive statement rather than a negative statement? And as Ryan said, if we need to, we can always come back to it next year, but maybe it will never be a thing. Okay, so can we do a thumbs up, thumbs down on changing that to a positive instead of to a negative? And Commissioner Cohen has a comment.
Yeah, I have a slight suggested revision. Let's see, on 1.4, what if it said to accept only those gifts, donor, which do not adversely impact or adversely affect the sense of community, or which are inconsistent with the mission. So that's closer to reject, and I don't think it implicates Ryan's concern that he doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to get into an argument about whether something does advance the sense of community.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And Ryan's such a positive person. I think he would appreciate having a positive statement rather than a negative statement. Eleanor, did you get those changes that Commissioner Cohen just suggested?
Yeah, I would like the commission to vote if you want the statement to end at safety of the public, or if you'd like to continue the rest of the phrase, or which are inconsistent with the Parks and Recreation Department mission, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think that was part of it, wasn't it, Commissioner Cohen? Which are,
Yeah,
like,
I-
can you just
I-
change
Would it
that?
be,
Yeah,
which are
I didn't have
consistent?
I didn't have a comment on keeping that one in or out. It's okay
Yeah.
it's okay with me to be in.
Which do not adversely
Right, and so,
accept gifts, donor recognition objects, and donor recognition projects and donor recognition objects which do not adversely affect the sense of community.
Except that you got to have only in there.
gotta have
though.
only,
Okay, to only accept. Thank you.
and then, yeah,
So then would inconsistent need to be changed?
right, it would be changed from consistent to inconsistent in that last,
No, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that's where I was wondering.
I don't,
as
I
well.
I don't think so. So to accept only those gifts, which do not adversely impact the sense of community, safety of the public, comma. Oh, I see.
Or
Yeah, it is,
which
it
are
is a problem.
consistent.
Yeah, it is a problem.
We could keep it as or which are consistent, because it would refer back to the original statement to only accept those which are consistent.
Yeah, except now we have two different things that would
Yeah.
permit somebody to let them in.
so should we put a period then after public? That's what you're suggesting, Eleanor, and take out the last sentence or last after the comma?
Yeah, that's an option.
Or which are not inconsistent with?
I'm in favor of putting the period after public. This is Commissioner Whisper.
It just makes it,
Well, isn't what we want to say to reject, I'm just going to shorten this up, to reject gifts. No, I'm sorry, to accept only those gifts, which do not adversely impact the sense of community to the safety of the public or are inconsistent with the Parks and Rec Department mission,
yeah, so change it to inconsistent from consistent. Is that what you're saying, Dawn? That's what I heard, but
I think it's the second which that's, first of all, it should probably be that, but that's grammarian's point. To reject gifts, etc., or to accept only those gifts, etc.
It could be or those that are consistent.
No, we're talking at the beginning now with the revision. We're talking about things that you can basically refuse to accept for, right?
Oh, so those are inconsistent.
So you can refuse to accept ones that adversely affect the sense of community, or are inconsistent. Forget about the comma, or are inconsistent with the Parks and Rec Department mission.
so just take out the which and take out the comma.
Yeah, doesn't that get where we want to be? So you can essentially reject ones that don't advance, that adversely impact the sense of community or are inconsistent with the Park and Rec mission.
Now we've said it too many times. Somebody else has to.
Let me
I would just call out that the current statement, even though it's in a reject form, I wouldn't look at it as a negative, does serve the purpose we're looking for. I know that it does, reject seems to have a negative connotation, but it's really an acceptance or a rejection, not a positive or a negative.
So I just posted something in the chat, which as Commissioner Cohen was speaking, which I think summarizes what he was saying.
Ooh.
But let me know what you think about that, if that's accurate.
Did you send it to everybody or only?
Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, sorry, I need to send this to, it went to City of Mercer Island. That
Mercer
must be
Raven.
Ryan.
That would be Raven.
Raven, okay, let me send this. Okie dokie, this is gonna go to everybody now.
Okay.
This is Don Cohn. If we're gonna do this one, I think I'd eliminate the comma after public and just eliminate the comma and the which.
That's how I have it written as well.
Mhm. Okay.
Oh, yep, actually, we need to deal with that last part of the sentence because, or separate it into two sentences here.
On the other hand, just to be clear, I'm okay personally with deferring to Ryan's viewpoint and leaving it written the way it is with reject. I don't find that highly offensive, and he's now said a lot of times that he thinks it could be important. But if we're gonna, I was looking for a compromise a little bit to make it a little more positive, and I think if we're gonna do it, then it would be of the public or are inconsistent with da 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 da.
So we take out the comma and the which, and that makes it all work together. That's what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so we now have a positive statement instead of a negative. Can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down from everybody?
Can we read that statement really quickly just to make sure it sounds like what we're trying to achieve?
Yeah. To accept only those gifts, donor recognition projects, and donor recognition objects which do not adversely affect the sense of community health, wellness, or safety of the public, or are inconsistent with the Parks and Recreation Department's mission to enhance the livability for all Mercer Island residents.
Yeah, I don't know if that reads appropriately because the second portion of it would be to accept only those gifts which are inconsistent with. So we would need it to change it to which are consistent with. So yeah, I see the difficulty here in trying to make a rejection statement into a positive statement. I think if a positive statement is not strong enough to achieve the purposes of what Ryan is describing, then I think we just need to leave it reject.
Okay, so we're going to leave 1.4 as it has been written.
This is Commissioner Westberg. I think that Don's changes are good. I think we can cut off the sentence there where put a period instead of a comma after public, because in statement 1.2, we already say that we will only accept those gifts, donor recognition projects and objects, which are consistent with the mission, policies, park property restrictions, etc. We cover that broadly in 1.2. I don't know why we need to single it out again here.
All right.
And maybe Ryan can explain. I don't.
You muted yourself, but yeah, Ryan. Is there a reason why we're adding that consistent language again in 1.4? Or Eleanor?
To be consistent with the department's mission. Yeah, I mean,
we've already said it has to be.
The mission doesn't actually have to be in there, I guess.
It was probably included because it was a reject statement for a very specific set of items.
I feel like
it
is covered in the previous statement. I don't see the harm in including it on this one if it feels like that. I would leave it to the commission. I've kind of shared my feelings about wanting to have a strong statement of rejection or the ability to. I think that's an important aspect. And so I would again defer to the commission.
Okay, so we've back and forth on this for a long time now, and I feel like it would be best to just leave it as is now. And then if in the future this isn't working, we can come back and look at it like next year or something like that, if this is a real problem. So can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down to just leaving 1.4 as it is right now and not doing any changes to it? So
a thumb up is a thumb up is no change to 1.4.
Correct.
Well, I have a quick comment actually, and Ryan, hopefully you can answer a question for me. So we just spent a bit of time wordsmithing this, but my initial comment was that we might consider just eliminating this, because I don't know why we would accept something that would affect somebody's health or wellness. So I'm wondering, Ryan, if you can give me an example of something where this might be applied. I mean, would it ever come up that somebody would try to give us something that would affect the sense of community or health?
I don't have an example off the top of my head, but if that example came forth, I would really like to reject it.
Okay.
I mean, that's just not, being kind of blunt. That's what I want. And that's what I'm hoping this gets us to. It's consistent with other policy language that we have for the community center as well, for certain rentals that don't meet these guidelines. And so those rentals do not have to increase or advance our sense of community, but they're not detracting from it.
Got it.
So yeah, if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right, thumbs up means keep 1.4 as it is right now. All right, Rory gives it in the middle, but everybody else says thumbs up.
So keeping it as a reject statement.
We're keeping it the same as it was. We're making no changes to 1.4. Let's go to 1.8. Commissioner Hay, can you give us your thoughts?
Sure, I wrote those in the matrix. So this is regarding elements of the current policy, which we are proposing to eliminate. And one of those things is that we say in our current policy to ensure that all donor recognition objects are consistent with design guidelines approved by City of Mercer Island City Code. So we are changing that to just all applicable provisions of the code. And I have to wonder what was trying to be achieved by putting this in the policy to begin with. If you look at our design guidelines, there are a number of things which would apply to a gift that might be given to the parks. So a lot of it doesn't apply. It's about buildings and building codes, things like that. But there are plenty of things that would apply, like landscaping, lighting, colors, a number of things that I imagine is what this was put in here for. So eliminating that is a big change. If we say all applicable provisions, that's pretty subjective. Who decides if we want to apply a certain part of the code to this? I think it's a significant change, and that we should keep elements of this in there.
If I could speak to that, staff feeling is that this actually includes design guidelines as well as all other aspects of the code and doesn't call out one specific category. So we would be seeking, I can't speak to how it was created before, but it's one of those statements. I mean, anything we do should be or is required to follow city code anyways. So this may be one of those statements that doesn't even need to exist. But to call it out specifically just to the design guidelines seems very narrow in staff's opinion.
And I'll also advocate for keeping it in because it shows that we're dedicated to ensuring things meet city code as well.
So this would go beyond just design codes is what you're saying.
But also inclusive of design codes.
Yeah, it includes it. So yeah.
But who decides whether or not to apply that code to it? or which portions of the code we would want to look at.
I believe
Any-
all aspects of the code would be applicable to projects if they fall within that area of the code.
Jody, Don Cohen, I have
Yep.
a suggestion. Would it help to have it read are consistent with all applicable provisions of the City of Mercer Island City Code, comma, including design guidelines? That way you pick up all of them that are applicable, but you're calling out design guidelines as something that you don't want to lose sight of.
Well, I actually don't think that would work, and correct me if I'm wrong, but our design guidelines do not apply unless we have this policy in here. Because our design guidelines are for the town center and for the zones outside the town center, which are single family, multifamily, et cetera, et cetera. So unless we have this in here, which says we want things in our parks to be consistent with what we've said for other areas, I don't think the design codes would technically apply unless we have a policy which says we want gifts in the park to be consistent with the design codes that have been adopted for these other areas.
I don't believe that we can apply codes in other areas to park. I see Councilmember Reynolds' hand up.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in and say, I think I understand the intent here, but what I would worry about is how to apply it. It's a legal question whether you can enforce by policy what is a code that applies to the rest of the city that I'm not going to comment on. But design guidelines are different for different parts of the city, and they might even contradict each other in some places. So I don't know how you would apply them to a park necessarily.
And that's my point with keeping it in there, because this policy says we would want the gifts in the parks to be consistent with what we have adopted for these other areas.
But what if the design code for the residential area is different than the design code for town center? How can it be consistent with both of them?
That's a good point. I don't know that there are a lot of inconsistencies in our codes.
I honestly don't know either. I can't think of an example, but there's at least the potential for that.
Outside the town center. So in that case, I suppose it would apply to the particular item or gift or recognition object that we are considering for the parks. You know, which area of the code does that, of the design code, does that most appropriately fit under?
Chair, this is Vice Chair Struck. I'm not sure that we're, we're the legal experts that can kind of I get the intent of where Ashley's coming from. But Councilmember Reynolds brings up a good point. I think you're going to have to remand this to the city attorney and say, here's what we were thinking about, and where do you end up?
Yeah, I agree. This is outside of our pay grade, this one.
We could be more specific and say that it would be consistent with the design guidelines for the areas outside the town center. So, that's 19.12. 19.11 is the town center. And that's a whole really, different area than the parks, obviously. So I would suggest that this is more in alignment. Things that are in our parks would be more in alignment with the guidelines for residential areas, 19.12, those areas outside the town center. My concern with eliminating the specific call out to the design guidelines is that we could do, we have no design guidelines for the parks. So how do we ensure that what we put in our parks is going to be consistent with what we allow in the other parts of our community?
I think you bring up an excellent policy consideration for the future of design guidelines for the parks, but those don't currently exist.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable eliminating this unless we have some type of guidelines, because we talk about lighting, colors, landscaping, all kinds of things. You know, if I showed up and said, I want to give you 10 gum trees and a kookaburra, some flora and fauna, you know, like eucalyptus trees, you would be able to say, because of this 1.8, the design guidelines, sorry, we can't accept your kookaburra and your, well, that'd be for other reasons, but your eucalyptus trees, because that is not a suitable plant. It will not grow here. This is to be consistent with our design guidelines. I can't accept that. I'm sorry. You know, even though a eucalyptus tree would be beautiful in our parks, you could come back to this and say that's not consistent with our design guidelines and those trees are going to die. So no, thank you. That would be one example of where this would apply. Another example is the colors. We do not allow a lot of bright colors. Neon or, you know, fluorescent is prohibited. You know, maybe this was in here because we don't want neon and fluorescent all over our parks. You know, that would be another example of where this particular thing would apply. If we eliminate it, we can't use those applications.
Okay, Commissioner Westberg, you had a comment?
Well, I think in response to the just general thread of this conversation, I don't know necessarily that we need a specific reference to design guidelines in order to turn down requests of the type that Commissioner Hay has articulated. I think there's plenty of other criteria in this document that would give us the leverage we need to say that's totally inappropriate for a park setting. So I would say I'm not as troubled by eliminating it now, but I think you do raise, Commissioner Hay has raised some valid points and issues that we should probably look at down the road with regard to this policy. But I think we've got plenty of ammunition in this document and plenty of flexibility to take out those, weed out those extreme examples.
Well,
Yeah,
on that
I
note,
feel like this is beyond us as a commission right now. So, okay, so let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down on the staff recommendation to maintain the statement as written in the city code right now. So we'll do a thumbs up, thumbs down if you want to keep it or you don't want to keep it.
can I ask one final question?
Sure, and then we're going to move on from this one.
So if someone came along and they wanted to put something very, very, very colorful in our parks, possibly neon or fluorescent in nature, could we do that with this policy that we are talking about adopting tonight?
Yes, and we can do that off of the past policy as well.
So that is inconsistent with our design guidelines. So I'm not sure how we could accept something that is fluorescent, because we currently say that donor recognition objects, you know, it doesn't include all gifts, but that the recognition objects must be consistent with the design guidelines. And I'm proposing that we say our gifts and donor recognition objects must be consistent with design guidelines. So to be clear, with the wording I have put here, we would not be able to accept neon fluorescent things in our parks.
Commissioner Burstein?
1.3 calls out that the gifts have to complement the proposed location. So accepting a fluorescent, colorful signage in the middle of the park by 1.3 would be rejected.
Well, that's subjective. Some people might think that complements the space. So this makes it really clear that if it is neon and fluorescent, that it wouldn't be accepted.
The other thing is was pointed out before as well, is that the design code is part of the city code. So it's not that it's superseded in any way, it's inclusive.
But it wouldn't be applied unless we put this policy in our gift acceptance policy. Because the
It's
design
part of
code
the
does not
city
apply
code,
to
though,
parks.
but it's part of the city code, so how is it not applicable to the parks?
Because the design code, correct me if I'm wrong, we can ask this question, we can ask someone this, but we have design codes for the town center and for the zones outside the town center, which includes multifamily, single family, commercial, planned business, public institution, right? Is that all it? But it doesn't include parks, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, so we have no design guidelines for our parks, but our current policy is saying that things are in the parks should be consistent with those design guidelines. If we take that out, we have no design guidelines for our parks.
So how does your proposed change without specific guidelines affect that? You say that they have to be consistent with design guidelines, but there are not design guidelines.
We're saying that they would be consistent with the design guidelines that are approved for the city. So those guidelines apply to other areas of our community, most of our community. So we're saying that things that are in the parks should be consistent with what we allow in the rest of the community. And I think that's an important thing to keep. I don't think our parks should be just anything goes. And I am concerned that if we remove this, it opens up that possibility.
But also after something is processed through policy, it'll be processed again through the procedures. So through that, if something is neon or whatever, the procedures is going to have some safeguards to make sure that things that aren't appropriate for the parks are not going to be placed in the parks.
Yeah, well, I won't belabor the point. I'm not okay removing this from the current policy. That's a change. I think it's a big change. Maybe I'm over exaggerating that, but in my opinion, it's big enough that I'm not okay.
Okay, we hear what you're saying, and let's have a thumbs up, thumbs down on whether we want to keep the staff recommends to maintain the statement or not. So thumbs up, thumbs down on keeping the statement the way that it is currently written. So people give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on keeping the 1.8. So I have C2. Okay, so I see a majority thumbs up, so we'll keep the 1.8 for now. And again, we can always revisit it later.
I couldn't see the vote there. Can you please read the vote?
Sure. So it was thumbs down from Commissioner Cohen and Commissioner Hay, and thumbs up from Chair McCarthy, Vice Chair Struck, Commissioner Burstein, and Commissioner Westberg. So, sorry, Commissioner Markson, were you a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up.
Okay, thanks.
Jody, Don
Yes.
Cohn, can I say just one thing?
Sure.
I'm not going to revisit this. I'm not sure. I voted against it. I'm not 100% on board with everything that Ashley said, but I'm mixed up enough in my mind that I'm willing to leave it the way it is for now. And I'm just trying to think about, what is it that that people raised about the stacks and their color scheme? Is that in the Aubrey Davis master plan, for example? Is that where those design things come from, or do they come from something else? City code, this and that, town center, non-town center. So I'm just so mixed up on something that I agree may be an important issue that I'm defaulting to leaving the status quo.
Got it. Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Okay, let's go to 1.9.
Chair, if I might jump in real fast on
Yep.
that topic, since we're still on it really quickly. I do think Commissioner Hay brings up an excellent point. Maybe not, in my opinion, specific to donations, but overall park design guidelines may be something that this commission wants to visit in 23 or 24. So just wanted to
I
share
agree.
that because I think we were on the path to a pretty strong conversation that we should be having in the future. Thank you.
100%. Okay, 1.9.
Okay, so this is related to cost. Our current policy has a few elements related to determining the cost to install and ongoing maintenance. I think that's an important part of the policy that we should not eliminate. And I know that we're calling this procedure, but just going back to the difference between our current policy and this proposed policy, we're taking out about 2.5 pages of something called responsibilities, and we're calling that procedures. We did take some of those responsibilities, or at least one of them, and put them in this policy. So my intent with 1.9 and the next one was to make sure that we're capturing everything from those responsibilities that is really important to keep. And I think that this one is important. So, a good portion of that 2 pages is procedural. We're going to assign it to these people. This is how we're going to do it or whatnot. But determining the cost of something approximately before accepting the gift, I think is a really important element to keep. And I condensed, if you look at the very last portion, I tried to condense 5.1.8, 5.2, 5.2.1, and 5.2.2 into one statement. And I think I captured all of that in that one sentence.
I would just to provide a staff response. We would encourage that this remain within the procedural document. The suggested statement specifies determining the anticipated cost. It doesn't say whether or not we should be accepting or rejecting that item, which is really where the policy statements come into play. That would be an evaluative process that would take place through a procedure with a decision ultimately made likely at the city council level if there was a increased operational cost.
Yeah, I think the policy element of it is that this would be determined prior to accepting the gift. So that wouldn't be a procedural, it is something you would do, but this would happen before it's accepted or rejected. So if we haven't determined that approximate cost to maintain it or install it, it wouldn't be accepted until we know what that is. And again, this is approximate. I'm not suggesting that we should know to the exact dollar what this is going to cost over 10 years. But before we accept it, we should have an idea of what this might cost. And the other element that I think is important is considering what portion the donor would be responsible for. And I do think that needs to be determined before something is accepted. You can't just, I don't think we can just say, oh, sure, we'll accept this project and not have some idea of who's going to be responsible for the future costs.
I see Commissioner Markson's hand.
I'm on mute. Sorry, I thought I didn't unmute. Commissioner Markson.
Thanks. I guess when I was reading the policy, I feel like what this potential comment is addressing is addressed in 1.2.3, which describes that the Parks and Recreation Department's financial ability to provide services and or maintain all parks in a manner that keeps them in a safe and attractive condition. So you reject if the Parks and Recreation Department can't do that. Am I forgetting, did that get taken out? Sorry, I may have lost track. But on top of that, I don't think that I know it was discussed last time whether the Parks and Recreation Department, whether the policy should include the cost of maintenance with a donation, like some sort of, like require that the donor pay for future maintenance. And we were just asked our opinions, but I do want to say again that, I mean, the whole idea of the donation policy is that the park is benefiting from this donation. So I don't see why we would then suggest that they maintain it as if it's not a benefit to the park. That's like basically saying, okay, let's say that's a bench. Well, we're gonna give you this space to put a bench, but we really don't want it. So you also have to pay to maintain it. Like it just, I think from a theoretical perspective of the idea of a donation is that we are benefiting from this thing. We can afford to maintain this thing and it's a benefit to the park. So I really, yeah, anyway, I guess I'm just repeating myself. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Westberg.
Thank you. I agree fully with what Commissioner Hay has expressed here as far as an action that should be taken prior to the approval of any gift. But I do believe it is a procedural item because the procedures, after all, exist not to deal with a proposed donation after it's been approved, but rather they are there to describe how a proposal, a gift, which otherwise meets the criteria in the policy, will be evaluated prior to approval. So to me, absolutely, we have to consider the costs, long-term costs of installation and maintenance and everything else. But that's not a policy question, that's a procedural question.
Thank you. Commissioner Hay?
Yeah, I think this would apply to kind of one-off situations like large-scale projects, because most of the donations that we would receive or gifts would be on the gift need inventory list. And so that would already be determined ahead of time what those future costs might be. That's already looped into that. And or for items like a bench, you know what it's going to cost to install it, maintain it. So that most of the gifts we receive, I anticipate would already have this determined. So this to me would apply to larger items that might be very costly initially, and then in 5 years, that might be donated. But if it needs to be redone in 5 or 10 years, who would be responsible for that? So, it's not assigning those costs, it's just considering what that looks like. So I hear that this is considered a procedure, but I do wonder why we have 2.5 pages of responsibilities in our current policy. We are talking about eliminating all of those except for the gift needs inventory. So that's a lot that we are separating out from our current policy. Why was it part of the policy previously and we're proposing
there
to
was no
cut it out
commission.
now?
There was no commission before to run things through, is part of the reason why this is being separated out into procedures and the separate policy for the commission to go on. Yeah.
But we would not see the procedures, correct? We would not have any input in whether or not those procedures change, because policies rarely change, but procedures can change quite frequently. If it's not working, you can just change the procedure, or if you don't like it, you can change the procedure. If we don't want to determine, if the staff don't want to determine the costs or any other part of this 2.5 pages, they can remove it. So we're making some really big changes to the policy. And I want to make sure we capture the important
from
parts.
some other people. Commissioner Burstein?
This is Paul Burstein. Just for clarification, are we limited from accepting donations that include maintenance? So if
No.
somebody were to donate something and say, as part of this, I am going to provide X amount of money every year for a period of time, and maybe it's in perpetuity, to maintain that gift.
Commissioner Burstein, you make an excellent question there. No, and I think that to go toward Commissioner Hayes' point also that we have, we have these bench donations that are very typical. We know what it costs to maintain, and that's ongoing. We have other donations that come through that may be larger scale, that have larger impacts. Some donations may come forward with an ongoing maintenance commitment or something like that. The city may push for an ongoing maintenance commitment dependent on what that donation is and what our situation is to maintain it. That would all be going through a process of evaluation. When we're talking about these larger scale donations, I believe off the top of my head, it's $10,000 or more. They have to go through city council anyway. So we're talking about a significant process that's already required through city code to go to city council. I anticipate those types of donations coming through the Parks and Recreation Commission first for recommendation to the city council, at which time I would presume we would be coming forward, or I can almost assure the commission that we would be coming forward with anticipated costs to give all parties the best opportunity to review that donation and decide if that's something that truly does benefit the community of Mercer Island.
And just to clarify, so it may or may not include maintenance costs in the donation. So there might be a sizable donation where they turn it over and say, this is yours and now you take care of it. And others may say, yes, you may have this and here's extra money to help pay for the deferred maintenance costs for whatever that funding is allowed.
Absolutely.
Included. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you. I am also kind of in support of the concept that Commissioner Hay has put forth. And I was trying to figure out a way to kind of thread the needle on this one. And if I looked at policy 1.2.1, where it says to accept only those gifts with the donor's full understanding that a gift become the property of the city and are subject to the laws, policies, and procedures that govern the parks, blah, blah, blah. So I guess you could, I guess I could argue that we do have this covered, even if we consider this piece of procedure. But I think if there is a way to kind of, from a policy standpoint, put the concept at that level, I would be supportive of that. I just don't kind of have that now. I think the way the current statement is, it's a little bit too, I'm not sure if descriptive is the right word, but too procedural oriented. I think it really is kind of saying, hey, we want to make sure that when we accept things that we're not kind of, going underwater on it.
Commissioner Markson.
Sorry, I just want to say one more time that no one commented, maybe because I made two comments at once, but I do think that 1.2.3 is saying exactly what everyone is suggesting. It's saying reject it if we cannot maintain it in a manner that keeps them in a safe and attractive condition.
Okay. Yeah, so I feel like what I'm hearing from Commissioner Markson and Vice Chair Struck is that we kind of already have this language in our policy that's saying that things have to be figured out with in terms of ongoing maintenance costs and things like that. Commissioner Hay.
Well, we took out the financial part of that statement. So the ability to maintain it in a safe and attractive way is different than wanting to spend $500,000, $1 million, whatever it costs. So we might have the ability to do it, but it might financially be difficult, or other things would have to give. in order to maintain it. So because we took out the financial part of that statement, we don't have anything about cost in here.
Okay, well, I will say that as a commission, we are not, financial stuff isn't part of our purview. Okay, so we've heard lots of comment back and forth on this. I'm just trying to think of a thumbs up, thumbs down that we can do on this. And is there a 1.9 or is that just one that you suggested? Because
There's not a 1.9 currently.
That
Okay.
would be a new bullet
Got it.
point.
A
So
thumbs up, thumbs down would be basically on the staff recommendation, wouldn't it?
Yes. So let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down on not including a 1.9 because this is considered to be procedural, as well as that there are other parts of the policy that already address financial stuff. So let me see a thumbs up, thumbs down here so that we can move on with this. See 1, 2.
Sorry, we're giving a thumbs up if we want to take the staff recommendation.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3.
Wait, can I ask a question just so I'm sure what I'm voting on? What if
Yes.
I wanted to have 1.9 in there as Ashley proposed it, but was okay with dumping the other stuff into the procedures? Then I would vote against this motion, right?
Right, well, because 1.9 doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, no, but it is more generalized, and then 5.2 and all that stuff is more specific. So I think I'm going to vote against what you're asking for.
Okay, very good. Thank you for clarifying, Don. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 for accepting the staff recommendation. Okay, so that passes. Okay, and was that the last one? Or is there another? No, we got. Was 1.9 the last one, or there's a 1.1?
There's a 1.10.
Okay, let's go to 1.10.
yeah, so this one was just retaining the part of the current policy, which says the city council would make a final acceptance or rejection decision. And I know that that is policy for items over $10,000, but for other items, which might be also needing to go to the council, I thought we should keep that in there. And so it would be referred to council either through, through the Parks and Recreation Director. And that would either be by their doing, or because the Parks and Rec Commission decides, hey, I think that council should look at this before it's accepted or rejected.
Okay, so staff is saying that this is would already be part of the procedures. Does anybody else have any comments about this? Commissioner Burstein?
Well, Burstein, does staff currently have that kind of discretion?
Yes.
Yes.
Oops.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. The department director does have that authority currently. However, we do oftentimes, and most project, I mean, $10,000, most projects are going in front of the city council anyways for acceptance. If that were to come forward, again, not something that happens all the time, but the department director does have that authority.
Okay, any other comments? Vice Chair Struck?
Yeah, so maybe just a clarifying question. So as I read this, I understand it. I mean, really, all this statement is just saying it's kind of clarifying at a high level what the procedure is with respect to kind of the relationship between city council and the PRC. Is that pretty much it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So this is Vice Chair Stark again. I guess what I'm trying to understand, kind of clarify here, is really this is just saying that we're kind of just, from a policy perspective or statement, just highlighting, saying, kind of here's the relationship between the council and the PRC regarding these projects. Nothing more, nothing less. Is that a fair reading of it, or is there more to it?
I feel that it reads as describing the procedure of how proposals move through basically the chain of command.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
So the intent was to update the policy to be reflective of the fact that we have a Parks and Recreation Commission now, which we didn't at the time that this current policy was formed. So current policy says that City Council reviews those proposals, which Parks and Rec Director refers to them. This would say that City Council would review anything referred by the director or because the Parks and Rec Commission wants them to review it. So the flip side of this is that it takes the pressure off of one person to make a decision on accepting or rejecting if it's a difficult decision to make, or if the Parks and Rec Commission is kind of divided in their view on a gift, it can go to council for a vote.
Which Ryan, division manager, I fully support that as a procedure, but as a policy element, I feel like this is saying it's our policy for the City Council to review proposals for gifts referred to it by the Parks and Recreation Director. I'm not sure that it fits within here.
But that's our current policy, correct? So we're just updating it to include the PRC.
I guess staff is recommending that this not be included as written and to remain within procedures or be followed through within procedures.
Commissioner Burstein?
Just to clarify again, this is the current procedure, correct? So the PRC or the Parks and Rec Director can refer to the City Council for a decision?
No.
Or is it new that this does not exist for the PRC and we need to at least update the procedure, if not the policy?
I would say I'm a little uncomfortable including a policy statement with the City Council as a procedural element. That's something I want to work through on how that goes through them to define it within our policy that it will.
No, I understand that. I'm just asking if that's the current procedure. So is it articulated in the procedure that either the PRC or the Parks and Rec Director may refer decisions on gifts to the City Council?
Not the Parks and Recreation Commission. That's not shown.
Okay.
But the city manager, just to clarify within city code, the city manager does, it is written within that they can and often do submit projects to the City Council for review before acceptance, even if it is under that $10,000 threshold.
Okay, so we've had lots of comments about this one. So let us do a thumbs up, thumbs down on the staff recommendation to not include 1.10 into the policy. So can I see a thumbs up, thumbs down, please, on not adding a 1.10? Okay, so I've got one thumbs down. I've got one thumbs up that I'm seeing right now. I've got two thumbs down. I've got another thumbs up. Got three thumbs up. Commissioner Cohen is giving it a thumbs up. All right, so the thumbs up have it. So we will not include the 1.10 in the policy. Okay, so we've gone through all of the matrix.
Can you please read the roll call on that?
Sure. Can everybody do again? So Commissioner Hay and Vice Chair Struck were thumbs down. Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Westberg, Commissioner Markson, and Commissioner Burstein were all thumbs up. And I didn't thumbs anyway. Craig Reynolds, or sorry, Commissioner Reynolds.
It's okay. I do have a first
Counselor,
name. It's
sorry,
quite-
I'm tired.
Quite fine to use it. I wanted to bring up an additional comment, or is the floor open for that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And I apologize due to time zone challenges from travel. I didn't make the last meeting, so this has already been discussed. Perhaps this has already been discussed, but one of the topics I raised previously, I believe, was the issue of donor screening. Have you guys discussed and rejected that idea? Because, you know, if Bernie Madoff or Jeffrey Epstein or an organized crime family member wants to make a donation, are we okay accepting that?
We are not okay accepting that. That's definitely something that has been discussed and feel falls within the policy, as well as how we vet that through the procedures to ensure that's applicable. And I think that the commission, as well as Councilmember Reynolds, probably saw an email earlier this week on a similar related topic.
Okay, so you're saying it will be part of the procedures then?
Yes.
Okay, I'm happy with that then.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, now I have, as my next item of business here, I have commissioners, may I have a motion to endorse the Parks and Recreation gift acceptance policy that we have gone through tonight to do. So is there, do I have a motion?
I move we accept the gift acceptance policy with the changes we have agreed upon tonight.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. So I have a motion by, oh, sorry. Yes, Ryan?
My camera won't come on. I apologize. If I could ask Commissioner Westberg to rephrase that language to endorse the policy as opposed to accept, that would be appreciated.
Sorry, apologies.
Thank you.
Language change to use the word endorse, not accept.
Okay. So there is a motion by Commissioner Westberg to endorse the Parks and Recreation gift acceptance policy, and a second by Commissioner Burstein. Can I have the city do the roll, please?
Thank you, Chair. Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Westberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Markson,
Aye.
Commissioner Burstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Hay.
Nay.
Okay, the motion has passed. Okay, so then we're on to the fifth item of business, which is the Recreation Division 2022 services update and the 2023 proposed services. And we welcome Recreation Manager Ryan Daly, whose camera is now working. Hooray.
Oh, good. Thank you for that. I wasn't sure. I still have the red line. I don't have a presentation. I just wanted to highlight that we provided a recap to the Parks and Rec Commission based on services that we provided in 2022 and the direction we're looking to go in 2023. I know that this report doesn't contain the financial information or the participant numbers. We're still finalizing those items. So expect that to be part of your 2022 annual report that'll come forward in Q1 of 2023, which is frankly fast approaching, and that's crazy to say. But I'm happy to answer any questions or take any questions that that you may have at this time, or move forward.
Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you, Peter Struck. Ryan, just if you could ballpark for us, kind of, again, thinking of activities pre-pandemic at 100%, and kind of we're sitting at the end of 2022 with, are we 50% of the way back, 75, 80, and now with a proposal for 2023, where do you kind of just roughly gauge where we would be at the end of 23 in terms, not of participation, but just in terms of overall activities available?
Yeah, so if I was going to speak on services provided, we'll call them,
Okay.
we're like 75% there, and that remaining 25% is your previous recreation programs. As you'll recall, the Parks and Recreation Department delivered a number of recreation classes and programs at the community center. That's not something we're currently offering. In 2023, we are going to be expanding that service. We won't be offering it in the same way we did in the past. In the past, we had a large number of casual labor staff. We also had additional full-time staff that were delivering those programs, and that's just not the direction we're moving toward. What we are leveraging is the facility, and then our partnerships with community groups, community members, rental opportunities for utilizing that facility. So, you know, thinking about right now, we have a yoga studio that is renting the community center to offer those yoga classes. In the past, actually, I coordinated those classes. I didn't teach them, but I went out and I got the contractor and I got the person and the team to put those forward. So that was a pretty large staff burden that we're not currently taking on right now. So as we move forward into 2023, I think what you're going to see out of your recreation team is that creativity and really leaning on partnerships to continue making those offerings possible.
So maybe if I could paraphrase, by the end of 2023, that we'll be close, within spitting distance of 100%.
I would say we would be within throwing distance. I wouldn't say we're going to be quite there in 2023. Okay. And this really depends on the relationships that we can build through this year. It will look different. I want to be open with the community. It will. And then as we go in, you know, to the following biennium, we'll have conversations about what needs the community may have and where we're needing to devote additional resources to meeting those.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any other comments, then we'll go to our sixth item of business, which is the 2022-2023 planning schedule update. And we're going back to Ryan Daly.
Thank you. I'm going to take the 2022 planning schedule and I'm going to put it over here. We're moving to 2023. As Jason mentioned earlier, Chief of Operations Kittner, he mentioned that we'll be adding the BMX conversation to that January meeting. That's not something currently listed on the planning schedule. So that's going to be a pretty full meeting. I think that first one in January with Aubrey Davis trail safety improvements, as well as the bike skills area. So that'll be coming forward there. And then we jump right into February, which I'm anticipating another conversation with the bike skills area to be added there. And then we have a pretty significant master plan kickoff that'll be going through that first quarter. So we're going to hit the ground running that first quarter, as you can see. And we do have some additional policy items coming forward, specifically the recreation facility naming rights or recognitions that could go through there, and then sponsorships as well. I do anticipate having a conversation with the commission regarding our recreation scholarship program. In the past, just to give you a quick highlight, in the past, we offered, as I mentioned earlier, we offered most of those programs in-house. We don't currently do that. So that opportunity to receive scholarships for those programs, there's not much to scholarship right now outside of summer camps. So what we're planning on doing is having a conversation with the commission as well as the YFS department to find out ways that we can better serve the community. And that'll probably be what I'm anticipating is some sort of a collaboration between YFS and Parks and Rec to make sure that those opportunities are made available to the community. And so that'll be sort of a public conversation that we have to find out how to better meet those needs. But we don't have nearly as much free space on this 2023 calendar as I was maybe anticipating before. But I will be working closely with commission leadership to make sure that we do balance this calendar. This group has had a full plate for, well, numerous years now. So I want to make sure that we can streamline that and make it manageable. But we do have a number of capital projects and community engagement items that we're going to need to have in front of the Parks Commission in 23. I see Commissioner Cohen's hand.
Yes, Don Cohen. I continue to be concerned about having a January meeting that has both the follow-up on the 30% bike skills area design and the yet to be seen WashDOT staff work on the Aubrey Davis trail improvements, and for all the reasons I've said before. So I know you'll keep in mind as that develops whether that really is realistic, particularly given the short turnaround on getting a whole new survey out and public publicity on the bike skills area. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, anything else, Ryan?
The only thing I would add that we get to do this coming year is we get to revisit some of those policies that we put forward in this last year. And so we're gonna be doing that later in 2023, but we'll take a look at the facility allocation and use policy for the community center, as well as the athletic fields, as well as the differential pricing policies. So it's a good time for us to weigh in, kind of review where those came out and make adjustments as needed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The 7th item of business is commissioner reports and comments. And commissioners, do you have anything to report or comments about things around the parks at all? I'm not seeing any. Oh, Councilmember Reynolds.
Yeah, just wanted to take a minute as we wrap up at the end of the year to say thank you to everybody. This has been a great pleasure watching you guys work. You covered a lot of ground this year, and we're clearly very, very thoughtful in all your work. So thank you for your service to the city.
Well, thank you for your service to our city. Okay, so I'm going to give one more plug for the tree lighting tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at Mercer Dale, and then followed closely at 6:30, the Firehouse Munch right across the street. For everybody, even though I know that it's just us now that are here, but hopefully I will see you there. And as a reminder, the next regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is January 5th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. The time now is 8:49 and the meeting is adjourned. However, as a reminder to commissioners, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Good evening and stay safe and healthy.